Live from New York, this is the Harvey Hour. My name is Nathan Harvey. It's great to have you in today on a Tuesday. As always, I'm joined alongside my dad, Stephen Harvey. How you doing today on this Tuesday?
Lots of big news this week. Lots of big news to talk about tonight.
Big time.
They've been late breaking news. Breaking news.
Literally, 5:20, 5:30? I'm calling you up saying we got some insane breaking news. We actually talked about that a week ago. I don't know if you remember. We talked about this particular situation after the Baltimore Sun report. Obviously, that's the first topic we're going to get into. But yeah, Black Monday did not disappoint. It disappointed some people, I'm sure, but ultimately in the sports news world, plenty to talk about, plenty to get into. But let's begin with probably some people might think it's the craziest news of all time. Other people are probably expecting this, and that is indeed John Harbaugh being fired from the Baltimore Ravens after 18 seasons. They did miss the playoffs this year in that Sunday night thriller between the Ravens and the Steelers, which they fell to the Steelers on a game-losing missed field goal thanks to Tyler Loop. Billy Cundiff did. I'm sure a lot of Ravens fans remember Billy Cundiff against the Patriots missing that field goal kick. But yeah, that's exactly what it turned out to be. An opportunity to make it into the playoffs, win or go home, and Tyler Loop missed it. John Harbaugh fired. This is only a couple weeks coming after the Baltimore Sun report where it seemed like John Harbaugh tired of Lamar Jackson. It was a big bombshell, really a hit piece on Lamar, but it turns out that Harbaugh will be getting canned after a season where they missed the playoffs and Lamar did not look all that great. My question to you is, after what we saw Sunday and basically how the season panned out, are you surprised at all that the Ravens decided to part ways with their 18-year head coach, John Harbaugh?
Yeah, well, I guess I'm a little surprised. Yeah, I think everybody is thinking about it and deciding whether they think, wow, this is a big change, or it's something that people saw coming. I'm not sure. But we're going to talk about all five coaches being fired. We start with an introductory comment here. We've come to the end of the NFL regular season. 5 coaches were fired this week, all for good reasons. There were 2 mid-season firings as well. Both Callahan for the Titans and Daboll for the Giants fell. The biggest surprise that just broke is the Harbaugh firing and by the Ravens. And I did a little research, not much because it just happened. He's fired after his 18th season. He had a 180 and 113 record, reached the playoffs 12 times, 4 AFC title games, won the Super Bowl 47, winningest coach in franchise history by 100 victories. He's only the 3rd coach they've ever had, but he has the record by 100 victories. He went 8-9 after entering September as the top Super Bowl contender. Started with a 1-5 record this year. That was really bad. Jackson missed 3 games with injury and played poorly when he returned. Loop missed that field goal. It was the first time he'd missed under 50 yards all year, and the Ravens were eliminated by the Steelers. Now, Loop is a rookie, so That's the biggest kick of his career, and he failed on it, which I'm sure he's still thinking about, and it cost his coach his job. 6th time the Ravens have missed the playoffs, and only the 2nd time in the past 8 years, but they haven't really been able to get to the Super Bowl with Jackson at quarterback. In fact, they haven't really come close, except one AFC championship game a couple of years ago where they lost to the Chiefs. He's not played well in the playoff appearances. I mean, he had a couple of good games. It was okay, but not what we see of him in the 2 years that he won the MVP. The Ravens Super Bowl last win was in 2012. That's ancient history. There were rumors of a rift between Jackson and Harbaugh, which the Ravens solved by firing Harbaugh. Despite winning records, the Ravens teams have become synonymous with late game collapses. They've blown 46 fourth quarter leads since 2008. And I think that, in the end, it comes down to the head coach, and they decided that it's time to say goodbye to him. I think this reminds me of the time when, quite a long time ago, when the Lakers coach was fired because Magic Johnson didn't like him. And I wonder whether I wonder whether Jackson was talking to the leadership about his relationship with Harbaugh, and maybe that it soured. The Ravens have this huge investment in Jackson. They can't just ditch him. That will screw up their salary cap, the dead cap money, all kinds of problems. So it's easy to ditch Harbaugh. Keep Lamar Jackson. Bring somebody else in and see what they can do. I don't think it's that bad a decision. 18 years of one team. How often does that happen anymore? Never.
Yeah. I think ultimately this was not surprising for me because I kind of agreed with the ending of your statement where, I mean, if you're at an impasse between player and coach, and the coach is known for something that I'm going to speak about very, very shortly, then you have to choose the player over the coach every single time. I think you absolutely have to. This was, at least for me, what I said on a prior show was if you have to decide between Lamar Jackson and your head coach, who is going to stay, you're going to fire the head coach 10 times out of 10, 100%. And here's why. Now, technically, this game that we saw on Sunday night is not technically statistically relevant for the stat I'm about to bring up, but it still is very, very damning of John Harbaugh. Because at one point in the second quarter, the Ravens were up 10-0, double-digit lead. Since 2008, John Harbaugh has blown 17 second-half leads, double-digit leads. Second half, and 10 in the fourth quarter alone. Since 2008, that is by far the most. And since 2022, second half double-digit blown leads, 7, most in the NFL. Double-digit fourth quarter blown leads, 5, tied for the most in the NFL. So he is known for choking these big-time games, and we just saw Brian Daboll, but it wasn't even really his fault. It was the defense's fault. Now, again, can you blame him for not firing Shane Bowen earlier? Sure, but again, even with the outside linebackers coach, the Giants defense wasn't much better. But if you're known for blowing leads, how long will you stay? Lamar Jackson, I said this prior, Lamar Jackson saved John Harbaugh's career. Harbaugh, I think, was on a 5-year span of only making it to the playoffs, one time and playing in one playoff game. Lamar comes in, it's playoff. Now they're losing a couple of those. Lamar's 3-5 in the playoffs. And this season you had an opportunity. But again, the last couple of years with Derrick Henry, something always was wrong. And early on in the Todd Monken, John Harbaugh, Lamar Jackson realm, I was able to find a statistic that time nobody was talking about because it didn't make a lot of sense. We put it, a lot of people, pundits on the internet, put it to the side of, okay, Todd Monken's figuring out what his style of Ravens offense will be coming as the OC from Georgia. What is the offense going to look like? Well, for me, I found something. All you have to do is run it with Derrick Henry 15 or more times, and with Lamar Jackson, you win about 70% of your games. And in this game, it was another example of what the hell are you doing with Derrick Henry? Derrick Henry had a really, really good first half. Like, it looked like he was going to run for 250 yards. The Steelers couldn't stop. And Lamar Jackson didn't play particularly well. He didn't have the ball much of the time, but he also didn't play great in the first half, and honestly, he didn't play great in 3 quarters. And in the fourth quarter, that's when he absolutely blew up a lot of broken down coverages and wide open throws, which obviously Stapp had him, although I will admit the 35-yard touchdown to start the game for the Ravens was a beautiful throw. But ultimately, outside of that, it wasn't all that great. It wasn't the two-time MVP that we know. But again, then you go away from Derrick Henry in the second half, and I told you after the game, I'm like, again, what are you doing? He ran for over 100 yards in the first half. Then you're giving it to him, like what? I think it was like 8 times in the second half, or maybe even fewer than that, 6 times in the second half. What are you doing? Run the football. And those explosive plays allowed Rodgers to come back. Because if you drain the clock, how is Aaron Rodgers going to come back from down like 7 in the fourth quarter? If you have the ball, you just got to run it with Derrick Henry. But it was like the Lamar show and the explosive show, whatever. But at some point, you had to fire John Harbaugh because it was choke job after choke job. The media would ask, how's Lamar doing? Is he healthy? John Harbaugh would go, I have no idea. There was the incident earlier this year, the injury report mishap that cost the Ravens $100,000 because they didn't represent his injury status right. It just seemed like there was a big rift between him and Lamar. It was reported on in the Baltimore Sun. He had to answer to that. They said they liked each other, and I think what was really damning evidence of how this relationship seemed to be over at that point was when the post-game press conference with Lamar Jackson, a reporter asked basically about his future or whatnot and what his relationship is with John Harbaugh. He just said, I'm focused on what the hell happened in this game. What if a reporter asked, how's Derrick Henry? You going to be excited to play with Derrick Henry next year? He would have been like, I'd be thrilled. I can't wait to get back back on the field week 1 with Derrick Henry. He didn't say the same thing about John Harbaugh. I think that this is really telling of where the Ravens are at this point, and a report that the owner of the Ravens was fed up with John Harbaugh, and I can understand why. When you blow as many double-digit leads as you do, I mean, if you're not bald, you're ripping your hair out.
Mm-hmm. Plus, this is a playoff game, essentially, right?
Yes.
This is a playoff game. And last year, why didn't they learn from last year? Instead of handing the ball to Derrick Henry, they kept throwing the ball.
Yeah.
And in this game, the first half, Derrick Henry had an excellent game. He had over 100 yards.
I think it was around 111.
111 yards. And then he ended the game, I think he had like 121 yards.
Yeah.
So he had nothing in the second half, okay? So, as you say, the secret to winning, I think if they had handed the ball to him, what did he get the ball? 8 times in the second half?
I'll confirm it, but yeah, it was a very low number.
Very low number. If they'd given him the ball more, they would have won the game for sure.
100%.
Because while Lamar was great in the fourth quarter, the drives that they didn't take up any time. If you have Derrick Henry pounding the ball and running the ball, it takes more time off the clock and leaving Aaron Rodgers on the sidelines. Aaron Rodgers had a great game. He passed for almost 300 yards in this game.
5 carries.
5 carries in the second half.
They
did not learn from last year, and that's grounds for being fired. I think that's grounds for being fired. They should get rid of Todd Monken too, right? Because
he's getting head coaching calls right now, so he may be out anyway.
Okay, well, good. I think that's right because he doesn't really have the right strategy. I don't think look at Derrick Henry. He got them to that game to have made something. He had 236 yards, 4 touchdowns in the last game. With Lamar not playing. He was the reason they won that game.
100%.
They should have stuck with that strategy. I don't know why. And it worked in the first half. They had, a 10-point lead in the first half.
Yeah, it was 10-0 entering the second quarter.
Yeah. So why did you change the strategy? I don't get it. Huh? Tell us. What were you thinking about?
Yeah.
I guess the owner knows what he was thinking about. John Harbaugh, you're out.
Yeah.
Okay? You lost that game. We could have won that game.
Yeah.
Right? I don't think you blame Loop for it.
No.
Right?
No.
It's that you let Aaron Rodgers be on the field too long, and he had one of his best games in years.
Yeah.
He hadn't thrown for 300 yards in, I don't know, 3-4 years, I think it's been. But
he had 1 or 2.
He had 297 in this game, so to me that rounds up to 300.
Yeah.
He's the reason they won that game. If you could have kept him off the field, even a little bit, even like 4 minutes less than he was on the field, would have won that game.
I completely agree because the Steelers' drives took 4 or 5 minutes long. The Ravens' drives in the fourth quarter, while they scored 2 touchdowns, 2 minutes, 10 seconds, 1:29.
Yeah.
The Steelers' drives in the fourth quarter, 5:12, 4:53, and then 1:25 was late. And that's another thing. It just seemed like the Ravens were off all year. The defense was terrible. Zach Orr couldn't figure out the defense. They didn't improve a little bit, but then fell apart completely in this game. Injuries, Kyle Hamilton and whatnot. Marlon Humphrey getting cooked every single game. I thought that in this game, Lamar definitely had stretches. The throw to Isaiah Likely was a beautiful throw. He had one in a tight window. He broke a sack and made a great throw. I think that might have been the Isaiah Likely throw. But to break that sack and make a play, he was fine in this game. I'm not blaming Lamar for this game whatsoever. I just think that, again, we've been on this now for 2 years. You have a strategy. I don't care if it's obvious. I do not care. Do you think last week, when it was Tyler Huntley at quarterback, they weren't going to feed Derrick Henry? He ran it 36 times. It didn't matter. He had over 200 yards and scored 4 touchdowns. It was an obvious game plan against the Green Bay Packers, which, by the way, the Packers are not a bad defense. And I just think that you had a method. You had 15 carries in the first half. He ran for 79 plus 33. That's 110. And all of a sudden, you get to him 5 times in the second half?
It's ridiculous.
5 times in the second half.
It's ridiculous.
You have a guy who's 260 pounds and was he 6'2", 6'3"?
Keep pounding those guys. After you pounded them big time in the third quarter with him, they're going to be tired in the fourth quarter. They would have won the game, I think, if they'd stuck to that strategy. And that strategy is so obvious.
Yeah,
it's so obvious that why they don't follow it. I think that's a good reason why for Harbaugh to be fired. That he didn't tell Monken, look, let's stick with what we did last week. Look how well it worked. Let's stay on the ground most of the time. Even with Lamar, let him run it a little bit too. Stay on the ground. It chews up the clock.
And we also saw
we had the lead.
Yeah,
we had the lead. Chew up the clock.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. You had Rasheen Ali taking a carry. He's a third-string running back. Is Derrick Henry getting too tired? Is his age hitting him?
Why they take him out of the games, and let him stand on the sideline there for stretches of plays? I don't get it.
And
he can actually catch the ball too.
Yeah.
Throw him a few screen passes. I just think I think it's a right move saying goodbye to Harbaugh.
And if I'm not mistaken, against the Patriots, the last 12 minutes of the game, Derrick Henry didn't take a single carry. If I realize that and I'm John Harbaugh, I'm telling Todd Monken, what the hell are you doing? We're in this game.
That's right.
We have a guy standing on the sideline who is a massive part of our offense. Why is he on the sideline? I just think that at this point, 18 years, you haven't done much in the playoffs. You're getting outcoached by Andy Reid. You're getting outcoached by Sean McDermott, who I think some people like, but there's a lot of question marks around his job stability, especially this season. Because if they lose, and this is probably the easiest run they've had.
They're going up against the Jaguars, at the Jaguars in their first playoff game. You think they can win that game? We'll talk about it on Friday.
Absolutely.
I got my doubts.
But I just think this is an unfortunate situation. All that being said, based on this coaching carousel system now, I still think he's the number one candidate out there.
Oh, yeah. I think, you know what? I think the Giants have probably already called him and said, come on up here. We want to talk to you. And he'd be the safe candidate for them. Yeah. Pick somebody who's had a lot of success, has been in the league for many, many years, is highly respected. He's the low-risk candidate to take him, give him a 3-year contract. That's a low-risk candidate. I'm sure I predict he'll be with the Giants.
I'm sure we'll do that at some point during the offseason, head coach carousel. But let's go with our next topic here, which is indeed Kevin Stefanski getting fired. Browns fans are hooting and hollering, cheering, applauding the fact that Kevin Stefanski, the saboteur, is now fired. And so the Browns are now looking for another head coach. Kevin Stefanski led the Browns, not this season, but a couple seasons ago, to the most wins they had since 1994 when Belichick was a head coach at 11. He was 2-time coach of the year, had double-digit winning seasons in 2 of those years, one with Baker Mayfield, the first time they made the playoffs in what feels like a century, and you decide to fire him after another bad season. Jimmy Haslam, absolutely ripping on him in his press conference. But yes, Browns fans, you can now applaud the guy who was quote-unquote sabotaging Shador's career is now gone after a 5-12 season. So my question to you is, are you surprised that the Browns decided, it's time for Kevin Stefanski to go?
Not at all. I mean, even though Haslam, who is kind of a weird dude, he's an outspoken dude, and some of his logic escapes me when he speaks. But, he had support from him as recently as 6 months ago, but then you go 5-12. After a sterling record of 3-14 the year before, and what do you expect's going to happen? I think he was 46-56 in 6 years there. He used 13 different starting quarterbacks while he was there. He suffered through the Deshaun Watson debacle, which may not be over in Cleveland. We'll have to wait and see. Hanselm agrees that more work needs to be done on offense, but still thought they should win more games. Should have won more games. Stefanski was the 2-time coach of the year, as you mentioned. He had 2 playoff appearances. One in 1-1, and he won 1 and lost 2, I think. Yeah, in the 2 years that they made the playoffs. So, I think he'll get a job too. I think that a lot of people look at him and say, you're playing for a crazy owner, and you had all kinds of bad luck. It wasn't him who gave Deshaun Watson that huge contract, and then he came in here and played terribly. And then there's been just a revolving door of quarterbacks the whole time he was there. Did he mishandle Shedeur Sanders? I mean, a lot of people like Shedeur Sanders. He didn't get him in there until late in the year, and he had a little bit of success, but his quarterback rating was like the bottom of the league. So, and when he speaks, I don't know, does he really have the what it takes? I don't want. You hear him speak, he's like in the ozone. I don't know. I don't get it with him. I think he's a talent, and they deserved a chance. He got his chance. Did he play well enough to be the starter next year? We'll have to wait and see. It's going to be a brand new coaching staff, and they'll have to make a decision.
I think ultimately you're the Browns. And that's why, and I've been on this, people talking about, he sabotaged Shedeur Sanders. What the hell are we talking about? This is the Cleveland Browns, one of the losingest franchises in the modern NFL. In fact, Shedeur Sanders, everybody's, favorite quarterback out there, had the 9th lowest QBR scale of 0 to 100 since QBR became a thing for a Browns rookie quarterback. Barely, I guess you could say it's 11.2 QBR points different than the worst one, which is Johnny Manziel. Shedeur Sanders was one up there. And honestly, Dylan Gabriel blows him out of the water in QBR. So again, everybody's favorite quarterback, he played fine. I don't think it's sabotaging whatsoever. And if people are complaining about, well, he doesn't have a wide receiver core or an offensive line or a running back group, why are you looking at Stefanski for that? You should be looking at Andrew Berry, the GM. Stefanski can coach with what he's got. If you have burnt food and you have to serve it, people are not going to like it. You had a bunch of rookies and young talent that weren't that great to begin with. Fannin, I love Fannin. He was really, really good, especially with Shedeur. But if you're expecting all of a sudden you to take wilted groceries to make it into a gourmet meal, I question your level of intelligence in the NFL, because nobody could do that. You ask any head coach to take the Cleveland Browns and make them into a serious competitor, this Cleveland Browns team, I would love to see it. You would be, screw Kyle Shanahan, screw Andy Reid, screw Belichick. You'd become the greatest coach of all time if all of a sudden you can make the 2025 Cleveland Browns a viable team. Jimmy Haslam says they could win more games. Where? You're blown out by the Baltimore Ravens. You lost to the Bengals. You did beat the Green Bay Packers in a weird game. You got blown out by the Detroit Lions. The Minnesota Vikings beat you. You got blown out by Aaron Rodgers. You beat up on a banged-up Tua Tagovailoa who got benched a few weeks later. You got destroyed by the New England Patriots. You lost to the New York Jets. Oh, my God. Maybe that's what you're talking about. You lose again to the Baltimore Ravens after you just got absolutely obliterated by them. You beat the Las Vegas Raiders, who I've said all year are half a football team. You got destroyed by the San Francisco 49ers. You lost to Cam Ward and the Tennessee Titans at the time, who had one win, if I'm not mistaken. You lost to Chicago Bears. You lost to Buffalo. You beat up on the Pittsburgh Steelers. That was your Super Bowl. And then maybe, honestly, this past week was your Super Bowl, beating the Cincinnati Bengals. I don't see many wins there. So I don't know what Jimmy Haslam's talking about. I don't think putting Shedeur in that early would have been the smart idea. I just don't think the Browns were going to do anything. I don't think it's sabotage. I just think that you were coaching a bad organization. You had one of the worst offenses in the NFL. Your defense was fine. Myles Garrett got the sack record. It took him 7 weeks to do it. But hey, he got it. Good for him. I just think that this is an organization that's been bad for so long. It's like expecting like the 1970s Tampa Bay Buccaneers to go win football games.
Yeah.
They were the losingest franchise until Brady got there.
Yeah, but you would think that with the number one defense for most of the year, I think they wound up number 2, Houston wound up number 1. You would think with that good a defense that you could have squeaked out more than 5 wins. They had no imagination at all on offense. Nothing. Why not get rid of the OC? Bring somebody else in mid-season, because the OC was horrible for them. They had no imagination at all on offense. They knew what. It seems like the other teams knew exactly what they were going to run on every play. They just did nothing. You got to come up with. I mean, if you got a defense that good, you got to come up with something to be able to try to get a few points. You don't need that many. They couldn't even get a few. Some of that's on Stefanski. I'm sorry.
Again, that's fine. But again, you're working with like first year, second year, third year guys who, albeit, are not that good to begin with. Harold Fannin is their best guy. Jerry Jeudy couldn't catch a cold this year. He was also calling out Shedeur Sanders and having that big disagreement early when Shedeur was out there. You had your starting running back that you drafted early have a contract dispute, so Judkins wasn't out there. It might have been an off-the-field dispute, but he wasn't out there to start.
Breaking his leg.
Exactly. So you had so many injuries. David Njoku didn't play a couple of the games here. The offensive line was terrible last year. Wasn't great this year.
I still think if he had any kind of imagination on offense, just to score 17 points a game, they would have had a much better record because the defense was excellent. You can't be so one-sided there. You got to figure something out, and they didn't.
Okay, so I'm going through the list.
They traded Joe Flacco, before he started out poorly, I admit. But they didn't. I think that maybe they look back on that. That was a mistake. They should have hung on to him longer.
Well, here's the thing. I'm going through the schedule right now. If the Browns scored 17 points in every game, they'd go from 5-12-0 to 5-11-1. They would tie week 1 with the Cincinnati Bengals. So it's not like 7. Again, 7.
How about 20 points?
If you score 17 points per game, you're a bad organization.
Okay, but they didn't score. What did they score per game? What was their average?
16.4.
Okay,
second worst in the league.
20 points. And then they needed 20 points. 20 points. I can see why their team didn't get that. They didn't have the horses to get that done.
Okay, if they scored 20 points a game, give them one more win.
Really, that's all it would have been.
That's all. Yeah. Again, so they go 6-11.
Well, I think he'll get consideration for a head coaching
100%. 100%. And like we're talking about, I mean, there was already a report as soon as he was fired that already a bunch of teams were willing to be like, hey, let's go Kevin Stefanski. We're willing to interview him. Now I think that he actually takes a step back now that John Harbaugh is fired. But again, I think that, he's sabotaging Shedeur. Oh my. He head coached the Cleveland Browns, the losingest organization in this millennium. Can we just please acknowledge that? They've had, 46 quarterbacks this century?
Yeah.
Can we please just
13
understand?
under his tenure.
Right. Can we just please understand that this is a bad organization? It's not a winning organization. It has no culture. So I just think ultimately it doesn't matter who your head coach is. Now, to wrap up, if every head coach was available, could any of them make this team have 9 wins? Even if you score 20 points a game, they're 6-11.
Mike Vrabel.
You think Mike Vrabel could change things?
Look what he did for the Patriots.
Patriots had a level of foundation, which I guess the Browns do.
The Browns do. I mean, look at they had tons of draft picks.
Here's one thing that I think we're missing that I don't think he gets enough love. He doesn't have Josh McDaniels on the Cleveland Browns.
Well, if he would have been that head coach, he might have brought him in as the OC.
Maybe. So you think Mike Vrabel is their only hope?
Mike Vrabel, I think, would have done better than 5 wins.
But was he the only guy?
He was there. Wasn't he a consultant for them last year? I think he was a consultant.
So, yeah. Now, again, they were terrible last year. But no, so you're saying that Mike Vrabel is the only option to move this team, again, to a winning record.
I would say
9-8.
That's the one that comes to mind to me. Maybe there's
Kyle
some
Shanahan.
others.
Could he do it?
Maybe.
I don't know. I genuinely don't know. I don't think Andy Reid, because his offense this year was super repetitive and it didn't look great. Hell, they lost to the Las Vegas Raiders. So that wasn't great with Aiden O'Connell starting at quarterback.
No.
So I do think there is a very few amount of coaches that could do something interesting with this team.
I think there's probably a half a dozen coaches in the league that over 2 years could have them moving in the right direction. Stefanski didn't. Okay. He didn't. They had 2 terrible years here.
Yeah.
2 terrible years with a defense that's one of the best in the NFL. That I can see why that's unacceptable to them.
I still think though, when you're working with wilted food, rotting food, and you're expected to all of a sudden, because of Shedeur Sanders, the biggest name in sports, you're expected to make this gourmet meal for everybody and serve everybody great food, and it comes out as crap. I mean, that's what you're working with here.
Well, that's why
like
he got fired.
Belichick and the Patriots.
He gave Handsome indigestion with the meal, and that's why he got fired. On to the Morris.
No, actually, I think we're going to Pete Carroll here. We are going to Pete Carroll.
Okay.
So the Raiders, I mean, this is over before it started. Pete Carroll is fired from the Las Vegas Raiders. There was a rumor about he may retire, but no, outright firing. This wasn't a great season for the Las Vegas Raiders. You let Aiden O'Connell to the bench. You actually trade for Kenny Pickett, and then you sign Geno. You trade Geno, and then give him a 3-year deal. Immediately, Geno was bad. Led the league in interceptions until Tua took over that, and I think Geno may have taken that record back for this season, but he was not good all year. The running game wasn't great. The offensive line wasn't great. The defense was still abysmal. They couldn't figure out an offensive line. They were moving Jackson Powers-Johnson away from his native position at center, moving him to guard. Wasn't doing that great. He wouldn't change things. They had no wide receiver core. Brock Bowers was banged up through large parts of the year. They let Jacoby Myers go, and he's balling out in Jacksonville. I mean, this wasn't a great season whatsoever, and the 73-year-old Pete Carroll was let go after only one season. So my question to you is, are you surprised at all that Pete Carroll was a one-and-done in Las Vegas?
Initially was a good choice. I thought that they needed somebody who was for stability, somebody who had a lot of experience. They've been hiring coaches that were kind of a guess, and a hope and a prayer. That like Pierce and then McDaniels. Those guys, they're not the proven track record as a head coach with Super Bowl appearances and a Super Bowl win for Pete Carroll. I thought he could bring stability. But, they hired, what's his name for his OC?
Chip Kelly.
Chip Kelly, who was horrible. And they wound up firing him partway through the year. But he wound up 3-14. I mean, he came in there. They were terrible last year. Why did anyone think that they were going to just turn it around under Pete Carroll? They didn't have any talent last year. And it was surprising that Geno Smith was so bad. He had a good connection with Pete Carroll and was successful in Seattle, but a failure with the Raiders, which was unfortunate. And Pete Carroll, he should have seen the handwriting on the wall here. He could have gracefully retired, and wouldn't have been a tarnish on his career in any way, shape, or form. But he wanted to come back. Now, come on, the handwriting's on the wall, Pete. They want you back. So why didn't you just retire instead of making it a mess and wind up getting fired? And now they're going to have Tom Brady help John Spytek in the search for the new head coach. I don't know what Brady's talent is here. I think he had a say in Pete Carroll being hired too. So I don't know how that's going to go, but Tom Brady's going to be involved in the search and the hiring of the next coach.
I think that what's interesting is that today there was a bombshell report by ESPN's Ryan McFadden and Kalen Collar that said, and I think this is partially why Pete Carroll was very, very hesitant to change the offensive line that drastically, because supposedly his son, Brennan Carroll, was the offensive line coach. And the report goes on. It says that, quote, the offensive line coach is the biggest issue with the team. Everybody knows and nobody talks about it because it's Pete's son. Everybody talks about it behind the scenes and no one talks about it publicly. And supposedly, according to this report, players who wouldn't know where they're starting or who's starting on the Sunday or Saturday of the game or before the game.
I didn't know this.
It just dropped today. It was a bombshell report here. I think that, if that's the case, then this is just a lot of failures. By the way, Chip Kelly was the most expensive offensive coordinator in the league. How? We have so many good offensive coordinators. Somehow Chip Kelly is the most expensive one, and he didn't even make it to the end of the year. I think partially the writing was on the wall with Geno Smith when the Seahawks, who had him for a number of years, when he averaged, I think he had a 72% completion percentage one of the years, when he was looking for a new contract extension, the Seahawks wouldn't pay him the $30 million that he was asking for. But the Raiders were like, we'll take him. Because they had to deal with Jimmy Garoppolo and Brian Hoyer and then Aiden O'Connell and Gardner Minshew. They needed some stability. And Tom Brady, I'm sure, thought, well, Geno is perfectly fine. He's not a Jameis Winston level better. He has to be better than Aiden O'Connell. It turns out to be significantly worse than Aiden O'Connell and Gardner Minshew. Maybe Jimmy Garoppolo or Brian Hoyer levels of not great. He was turning the ball over way too much. Ashton Genty, who I thought that, again, for the mock draft, I was going for right over what my heart feels like. But I said before, that Penn State game was a little bit jarring to me because Ashton Genty couldn't do anything against Penn State's defense. And we kind of saw it this year, averaging about 3 yards a carry. Didn't look all that great. Couldn't find holes in the offensive line. The schemes weren't all that great. Geno Smith was bad. We could blame it on Brock Bowers. But again, at least they had pieces. Jador Sanders had nobody. And he did fine. I just think that ultimately, and by the way, this is the worst part about it, no matter what head coach goes here, and I do think you do not want an experienced coach for the Las Vegas Raiders, and here's why. This is a team that's going through a complete rebuild because you just pissed off Max Crosby. There's a chance now. They wouldn't do it during the year, but there's a serious chance that if Max Crosby is so pissed off that Pete Carroll and this organization benched him for the last 2 games after he begged to play, and supposedly he's on season-ending IR to get surgery, what I don't understand is how are you on season-ending IR and when you're begging to play? That doesn't exactly link up exactly, because how the hell can you play if you need surgery? Don't understand it, but apparently you needed it that badly. But I think that I think if he stays this pissed off at the organization, he will demand a trade or force a trade, and it doesn't matter about a contract because I think he just signed one recently. So he can't pull a Myles Garrett to get paid $40 million a year. But you may be losing him. You lost Christian Wilkins. You lost Jacoby Myers, your wide receiver one. You're stuck with Trey Tucker and Brock Bowers. This is a job for a new head coach. This is a job for a new DC or an OC, or maybe even Cliff Kingsbury, who's getting calls right now. I do not think an experienced hire wants to go to this job. And I think it was Fox Sports, they did their list of the best coaching jobs available. And they put Raiders at number 1. No. You need way too many pieces. Your secondary is terrible. Your linebacker core is terrible. Your offensive line is not that great. You have Brock Bowers, and that's it. Ashton Genty was not that great this season. You don't have a quarterback. You do have the number 1 pick, and you're probably going to go with Fernando Mendoza. You have no wide receiver core. You need so many pieces. You have no foundation. And what we've seen recently is a lot of these young quarterbacks, they come in and have success. Why? Look at the Patriots. Look at the Denver Broncos. Look at the Minnesota Vikings, although jury's still out on J.J. McCarthy. But all these young quarterbacks who have levels of success, Caleb Williams as well, they have a foundation. They have pieces around them already. They just needed to be that last cog to let this train going. Drake May come into a Patriots team that already was a good defense, and they had some pieces like Ramondre Stevenson. They had a couple pieces on the offensive line. Hunter Henry was out there. They had some experienced wide receivers. And then all you need is Drake May to play well. That's all you need. You have Justin Jefferson, T.J. Hawkinson, Aaron Jones, Christian Darrisaw, and one of the best defense led by Brian Flores for the Vikings for J.J. McCarthy. The Broncos had the number 1 pass blocking offensive line and a top 3 defense in the league. All you needed was Bo Nix. So I think that going to the Raiders, I don't think this is a first-time head coach hire whatsoever. I think that you're going to be rebuilding for 5 years. You're going to need to move way too many pieces around. Whatever old coach is going to go here, I don't think Brian Daboll should stoop to the level of the Las Vegas Raiders after getting fired by the New York Giants. Go be an OC, rebuild your reputation like you did on Buffalo. I think that right now you're looking at probably a first-time head coach, whether that's the DC of I'm trying to remember the Los Angeles Rams, whether that, Cliff Kingsbury, I know he's not a first-time head coach, but if he wants to coach there, I wouldn't hate it. But I just think that you don't want Kevin Stefanski going there. If I'm not going there. I just went to the Cleveland Browns. This is not an upgrade. If I'm even Robert Saleh, I'm not going to this team. If I'm Brian Daboll, I'm not going. If I'm John Harbaugh, I'm not going. No coach that lasted 5+ years as a head coach should be looking at the Raiders being like, that's an intriguing job. I could be really successful. No.
Yeah, well, I'm not so sure.
Your division is the Broncos, Raiders, Broncos, Chiefs, and Chargers, all who are significantly better than you.
I don't think that it could take 5 years. You look at what Mike Vrabel did. He brought in a lot of players, Nate. They had some, but he brought in quite a few players. They brought in Stephon Diggs, right? They brought in like 5 or 6 defensive players, right? And they upgraded their receiver core. They drafted Henderson.
Yep.
Right. So they made some good moves talent-wise, and they have an identity, as Drake May says. They have a culture that Mike Vrabel brought. So if you can find a coach that can do that, and you got a GM that can bring in some good players, you can turn it around faster than 5 years. Gerard Mayo was a disaster, right?
Right.
He only won 4 games. Mike Vrabel won 14 games. 14 games in 1 year.
Yeah.
So it can be done. And there are other examples of that. So who will the Raiders pick up? I do think that most of these coaches that have been fired would look at the Raiders and say, yeah, if I don't think I'm getting a job anywhere else, there's only 32 of these jobs, I'd take it, right? If Kevin Stefanski doesn't get another offer and the Raiders call him up and say, will you come be our coach? He's going to say yes.
Well, then you're settling. Right? Then you're settling.
Yeah,
that I can understand an experienced coach going. If they have if Belichick wanted to coach
Brian Daboll isn't going to have any other choices. If the Raiders called him up and said, come be our coach, he'd say, sure, I'll come.
That's if he wasn't getting an OC job. If he was offered an OC job.
He's going to take a head coach job over an OC job 10 times out of 10. Ooh. Any of these guys would. They don't want to be. They want to be the top dog. That's what everybody wants to be, right? And there's only 32 of those spots, so it's very prominent, even if you're with a team that's been terrible. So I'm not sure who's going to be the Raiders coach, but Tom Brady's going to have a say in it. And I think that he would want somebody that had experience. I would say he would be looking at someone like Mike McCarthy. He'd like to get somebody like him. And I think Mike McCarthy's chances for the Giants, which I would say it's between McCarthy and Harbaugh, with Harbaugh having the lead at this moment. But so if one of those guys isn't going to get that job, so whoever doesn't, I think the Raiders would, with Brady helping to lead the search, would go after that. I don't think Brady's going to want to gamble on somebody who has no experience.
That's fair.
Right? I don't think that's just not his style.
But again, you're thinking of it as the smart, executive way to think about it. I'm thinking about it from the coach's perspective. I want to go to the Raiders in that division with no quarterback.
If I don't have a job, I'm going.
Again, you're settling.
Because I want a job and I want to be a head coach.
That's fair.
It doesn't matter if I go to a team that's horrible like the Raiders, the bar is low. Right? I can probably last. Well, Pete Carroll didn't last, but again, he's 73 years old. So, I can probably last 2 years. Aaron Glenn is going to survive. He's going to get another year, which is very surprising to me. But I would say there'd be a lot of candidates that want to be the Raiders head coach.
Well, we will definitely see who they get. I think it's going to be a great offseason.
I will say it's going to be a veteran coach, and I would see Brady trying to get someone like Mike McCarthy, even Stefanski. He would maybe try for somebody like him. He wants somebody that he knows, somebody that he's seen, somebody that he respects, somebody that he looks at their schemes and it said they had a good scheme. They just didn't have the talent to support it. So he's an educated guy, and he's the best player that ever played. So he's probably a good guy to have helping you trying to hire a new head coach.
Again, some of the players that are on the Raiders now, some of the hires like Pete Carroll and Chip Kelly and getting Geno Smith, there were, Brady's fingerprints were on all of these deals. They all turned out to be cataclysmically bad, like shockingly bad. Geno Smith was brought over for stability. He was the most unstable quarterback you could have. Pete Carroll, again, building a culture. You pissed off the number one guy you have left.
Okay, well, I didn't know that his son was the offensive line coach. That's a bad take. You should never hire your kids to work for you, and particularly in the NFL. And Bill Belichick's a good example where he shouldn't have done it either, or at North Carolina.
He did North Carolina.
Shouldn't do it. You shouldn't do it. You shouldn't have your kids in there. You should have let your son stay over in Washington. He was doing a good job over there. Yeah. Don't bring your kid in there. It creates a unsettled atmosphere. People don't like it. And the fact that Pete Carroll's son did a horrible job. Well,
and he stayed on.
Yeah. And you know what? That's nepotism.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, enough said. Next.
All right, let's go to our next firing here, which is Jonathan Gannon. Jonathan Gannon, it was a bit of a rocky up and down battle over the course of his coaching tenure. He ended up this season losing 14 of the last 15 games of the year. It was rough. Head coach situation, not great for Arizona. Again, they need a lot of pieces, but Jonathan Gannon, head coach no longer, but he was the head coach of the Arizona Cardinals. It wasn't great this year. Marvin Harrison was banged up throughout the year, wasn't great. Kyler Murray was hurt. then soft-benched and placed on IR. It was an interesting situation. He ends his coaching tenure, 3-year coaching tenure with Arizona, with a 15-36 record. And now the Arizona Cardinals will be looking for their next head coach and potentially having to deal with the Kyler Murray situation as well. Whether that draws people away from the Cardinals, we'll have to wait and see for that. But my question to you is, are you surprised that the Cardinals decided to let Jonathan Gannon go after only 3 seasons?
No, not at all. And I think that they realized that Jonathan Gannon was in over his head. I mean, his experience before that was as the Eagles defensive coordinator. He helped the Eagles get to the Super Bowl. And then he was immediately recruited away for a head coaching job. It was too soon for him. He wound up 3-14 this year, 15-36 in 3 years. They're retaining their GM, Monti Ossenfort. He had 4 losses in December by double digits. He lost 7 games by 4 points or fewer. That's a coaching thing. When you lose 7 games like that by 4 points or less, that's a coaching issue. He didn't have enough experience, I don't think. He lost to the Titans 22-21 after leading 21-6 against the Titans, and you lost. Well, how did that happen?
I'll tell you once I get to my take.
Yeah, Murray had some injuries. Murray only played 5 games. So is Murray that great? A lot of question marks about him, whether he'll be there next year or who he might even be with. So I think the Cardinals did the right thing. If I were any one of these other teams, I'd go after Gannon as a new defensive coordinator. That's what he should do. Go back to being defensive coordinator. That's where his strength is. And there's plenty of teams that need one.
Well, unfortunately, I don't know if it's his strength anymore or if, again, it's just a bad a group of guys he had to coach. But the Cardinals' defense was 27th this past season. So it was a rough showing if Jonathan Gannon, wants to become a defensive coordinator. I just think that, again, it was unfortunate. Your early round pick, Walter Nolan, was banged up through most of the year. He comes back, gets banged up again. After he had a decent showing when he was out there, I just think ultimately Will Johnson as well, he was banged up throughout the year. Marvin Harrison was banged up. You lost your running backs as well. Kyler Murray wasn't that great this season. All you had was Trey McBride. I'm happy I had him on my fantasy team, but that's all you got. The defense wasn't great.
Marvin Harrison is even that good.
Ooh. Wow.
I don't think he's that good,
Hot
really.
I
don't think he's that good. I think that he was overhyped. There was first receiver picked in the draft. He never performed that well. He really didn't.
Hot take.
He got hurt a bunch of times, and I just don't think he's got it. Like his father did, for sure.
Well, I think that, you talk about the Titans game, and that Titans game was embarrassing. If people forget what that Titans game ended up being, I'll remind you. Cardinals are doing fine. They're up. They're winning. It's great.
Turnovers.
What happens is Cam Ward throws an interception. The Cardinals pick it off. Then the Cardinals fumble it. And they kick it like the Three Stooges into the Titans' end zone. Tyler Lockett picks it up in the end zone. Touchdown. Are you kidding me? Kyler Murray, again, doesn't play that well. Turnover. Again. And then you let Cam Ward, who couldn't stop turning the ball over, wasn't great to begin with, lead a game-winning drive all the way down, scores, and they win the game. I mean, that was Three Stooges type stuff. I just think that this Cardinals team needs so much work. Their defense, not that great. Offensive line, not that great. All you have is Trey McBride this season. Your running back group, it was banged up, but ultimately, it wasn't that good to begin with. You never really had a strong running game throughout Jonathan Gannon's tenure that was really formidable. Yeah, it had some good numbers. Also, it was inflated a little bit with Kyler Murray. But I just think ultimately, you need some sort of culture change. You don't have a culture of winning. You need to figure out something because now look at your division. This is where you want an experienced head coach. Because you have to look at your division and realize that you have some guys. You definitely have more than you do if you sign with the Raiders. You have more foundational pieces. You could keep Kyler Murray if you want. I personally wouldn't. But think about it. You have Marvin Harrison. You have Brock Bowers. I mean, I just think that you have something to work. You have
I don't think Marvin Harrison is the real deal. He hasn't shown us much of anything. Really.
Well, again, you have to realize who the quarterback is. I think Jacoby Brissett, he played as fine as you could play with what he had to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
With no running game, your wide receiver one is out through decent stretches of your tenure there. I mean, Trey McBride was the only guy you had.
Uh-huh.
And then Michael Wilson, I'll give a lot of credit to Michael Wilson because he stepped up into the wide receiver one spot when Marvin Harrison, as you're putting it, is not living up to where he was drafted at the number 4 overall pick?
Yeah.
So Michael Wilson, I'll give a lot of credit because he was really their only guy besides Trey McBride. But are you going to go into 2026 being like Michael Wilson is going to be a premier wide receiver 2 with Marvin Harrison being the number 1?
The other thing with Jonathan Gannon, he lost so many games by so few points there that I think he lost the locker room, and that's when they just fell apart. And then they lost all those games by tons of points. I think he lost the locker room too. So you can't do that if you're a head coach.
I agree. Again, I'm a little bit surprised Zach Taylor retained his job after we saw early in the year against the Jets.
I know
Chase Brown calling out the defense directly in the locker room. I wish I had the soundbite, but he was ripping on his own team.
Yeah.
And somehow you keep your job. The locker room was imploding at that time. You lost to the Jets. You lost to the New York Jets, who, when you do your weekly report, I got some data out here that is shockingly bad. So we'll get to that at some point. But yeah, no, I think the Cardinals, you have to figure out a situation here. We'll eventually in the offseason, we'll do our predictions on which coach is going where. But I don't love this job. This is one of the lesser jobs I'm looking at. Cap space is not great. Foundationally, you're not great. Is Drew Petzing really somebody you're trusting as your OC? I don't know. DC, I don't know if I'm trusting him either. I mean, I think this is just a bad job all
Brian
around.
Dable in to be your OC, offensive coordinator.
Maybe.
There's some other people out there. And again, there's only 32 jobs. Everyone's going to be interested. Anybody who's available will be interested if they don't think they're getting a job somewhere else. They could interview for all of them. If they don't get it, then they'll go over to if the Cardinals say, would you come coach us? Sure, I'll be there. I'd love to do it.
Okay, let's get to our next firing here, which is Raheem Morris. The Falcons, not only did they fire their head coach, they also fired their GM to go along with it. So it's basically a cleaning house of that regime. Raheem Morris, this was his second stint with Atlanta as the head coach. He was the head coach back in 2020 when Dan Quinn got fired after going 0-4. He came back and coached them for 2024 and 2025. Had an 8-9 record both years, but failed to make the playoffs both years. So now the entire regime of Raheem Morris and Terry Fontenot, he's out as well. So right now, the Falcons going for basically a full reset. And now might bring in Matt Ryan for an executive position, which is going to be interesting to see whether or not he gets hired there. But my question to you is, do you like this move by Atlanta, cleaning house GM and head coach?
Very much so. I thought their head office group was a bunch of bozos. I really did. I think the Fontenot guy, they didn't want Bill Belichick because they thought, well, he's not going to let us do anything. Well, look what you did. You wound up with not making the playoffs 2 years in a row with Raheem Morris. And I think that they came to the conclusion that the coaching held a very talented roster back from realizing the postseason. They got plenty of talent on that team. Anybody's going to want to go coach them, right? They got a lot of talent. And they have Kirk Cousins. But Raheem Morris, if he'd been smart, he would have started him much sooner. He let Penix start. You know, Kirk Cousins, they were they won their last 4 games with him, and he was basically a game manager. He wasn't turning the ball over. He was handing the ball to Bijan Robinson. They were letting Bijan Robinson be their offense, which that's what they should have done more of during the year. And that was a winning formula. Well, it was too little too late, guys. They started very slow. They won 4 straight to end the season. Should have had Cousins in there sooner. We'll interview with I hear Raheem Morris has already been called to interview with the Titans. I'm surprised they want to go with him. They fire Fontenot, and Matt Ryan likely to be hired as the team president to recruit a new GM and coach. Matt Ryan has no experience at all doing this. So I'm not sure why. He's a smart guy, and he's good on TV. I like listening to him.
Yeah, no, I think it's great.
But what does he know about leading this? I think that's a big risk.
Well, I think that it's interesting that the GM got fired because his recent first-round picks were not terrible. The Kyle Pitts one is interesting, where he had a great rookie year and never could live up to it again. Again, could that be circumstantial around the team around him in the quarterback situation?
Yeah,
maybe.
I think
and aging Matt Ryan into Kirk Cousins and then into Michael Penix and then back to Kirk Cousins.
But Kirk Cousins was going to him quite a bit.
Yeah.
And he had a career game with Kirk Cousins just recently.
And I think that there's one massive misstep that you alluded to, and I do think it is the biggest misstep you could possibly have. But yeah, I think Kyle Pitts, first year, again, you drafted him 4th overall as a tight end. So they're doing a big risk right there by doing that. And the first season, he kind of delivered. It's just he couldn't take it to that next level. And this season, he had, what, an 150-yard, 3-touchdown game? First time since Shannon Sharp did that in the 90s. But, okay, we'll call that the placement of the pick was rough, but the pick itself was not a terrible pick. It was, you didn't live up to expectations. Then you drafted Drake London 8 overall. That's a hit. Bijan Robinson 8 overall. That's a hit. And then jaws dropped. The world stopped spinning. You draft Michael Penix. Oh, 8 overall again. The world stopped spinning. You know why? You had one of the worst pass rushes in the NFL at that time. Quarterback situation was not terrible. And you just signed Kirk Cousins months before you made this pick. You just signed Kirk Cousins. And you draft a quarterback. You gave Kirk Cousins $100 million guaranteed. And a couple months later, you draft Michael Penix. World stopped spinning for a second. Jaws on the floor. So, again, and he also had an extensive injury history. So I'm calling that bust. Complete bust. And then this year, this past year, you had 2 first-round picks in Jalen Walker and James Pierce. Both great hits. So you have one that didn't live up to expectations, but was very good his rookie year and played fine. Then you had hit Drake London, Bijan Robinson, world stopper and Michael Penix, and then Jalen Walker, James Pierce were both hits. So firing the GM was a bit interesting. Raheem Morris, again, I just think it's a level of expectation. You played in the worst division in football, and it's not close. It's not close. And you couldn't make the playoffs in back-to-back years. That's understandable. Your record was fine, but it wasn't good enough in the worst division in football.
Yeah, well, particularly this year.
Yes.
Look at the other teams.
Yes.
I mean, nobody wanted that division. Nobody wanted to win it. And in fact, the Panthers wound up backing into getting to the playoffs.
Because the Falcons beat the Saints.
The Falcons beat the Saints.
Yeah.
I personally think if Kellen Moore had started Tyler Shook sooner, that the Saints would have won the division.
I do not doubt that whatsoever.
I think they would have won the division because that kid played extremely well. Yeah. He made some mistakes this last week in the loss to the Falcons, but he threw an interception in an untimely moment, but he did come right back down the field and score again, and they wound up with a chance. Yeah. But and that's something the Saints haven't had. If they pull a Rattler out of there, Spencer Rattler, who went last year, he couldn't win a game. This year, he wound up winning one. Because he's 1-12 as a starter. Yeah. You got to get him out of there sooner. Yeah. Well,
we have to realize they won the game because Cam Scatterboo, Darius Slayton, and Jackson Dart couldn't hold on to the football. Right. There was a bunch of fumbles, one that got housed.
Right.
And by the way,
Giants gave him the game.
I'll add this. We have to remember, another team that lost in crazy fashion to the New York Jets, the Atlanta Falcons. If they beat the Jets, they would be in the playoffs right now. We have to realize that. If you beat the Jets, who didn't do anything on defense, and they did even a tiny bit, am I even going to give him that? A little bit of offense. Because Tyrod Taylor did a fine job offensively for what he got working with him. Justin Fields didn't do anything. Brady Cook can't do anything. Tyrod Taylor did a little bit of something, not all that much. But if you just didn't lose to the Jets, you'd be in the playoffs right now. Yeah. And you would be keeping your job. So I think that
should have started Kirk Cousins sooner.
I completely agree.
Should have started him sooner, Raheem.
And I also think, again, I don't know if it's general manager, I don't know if it's ownership, I don't know if it's the head coach. But exiting the 2024-25 season, going into this season and in the offseason, you make the determination instantly that Michael Penix is your QB1. Not a competition, not we'll see who the better quarterback is, not we'll let him fight it out. We'll see who's the better one in training camp or in OTAs or minicamp or whatever. No, you come out and say, no, Michael Penix is our QB1, which pisses Kirk Cousins off. And he's a very nice guy. He could have demanded a trade and put his foot down and say, I'm not even showing up. He didn't do that. He stayed. He got his opportunity. He had 10 touchdowns, 5 picks, had a game where he threw, for like 400-something yards against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who they beat. I mean, he did a fine job. So I think that's a massive misstep, where you don't even have a competition with a guy you're spending exorbitant amounts of money on.
Another example of their front office being a bunch of bozos, right? They go ahead and they give Kirk Cousins the great big contract. Yeah. His wife is from the area.
Yeah, they move.
They go back there. There's a big fanfare. They welcome him to the city. Everyone's excited because he had such a good work with the Minnesota Vikings. Yeah. On draft night, they decide they're going to draft Michael Penix. Yep. They don't even tell
They
Kirk
don't
Cousins.
tell him.
They don't even
that.
tell him until like 5 minutes before they pull the trigger on that. What's a guy supposed to think?
Yeah.
And then he came in and he did start. He did okay. He ran into a rough stretch. They benched him and put Penix in there, and they didn't make the playoffs, right? Penix had 3 starts. He lost all of them, I think, right?
The last 3 games, he went 1-2.
1-2.
Yeah.
Hey, you should have stuck with Kirk Cousins.
Yeah.
That's the guy you gave the money to. That's the guy that had the track record.
Yeah.
And if you'd done that, Raheem, you'd probably still be the coach, I think. I think you'll probably be in the playoffs this year.
Well, no, all you got to do is not lose to the Jets, and you're in the playoffs.
That's right.
You just can't lose to the Jets. No, I just think ultimately, again, we look at all these jobs, and I'll bring up the graphic for all the jobs that are available. We'll speak about this in a later show. But looking at these teams, again, putting you a little bit on the spot here, there's one team that's glaring as number 1 now. The number one job spot for a head coach. Obviously,
the Ravens.
Right, the Ravens by far are the number 1 job. Now, here's where it gets a little bit tricky.
Mike McCarthy.
Who's number 2?
Who's number 2?
What job is number 2?
The Falcons.
You think the Falcons is the second best job?
Talent. They have Bijan Robinson.
Wow.
Right? They have a decent defense. Right? They have some good wide receivers. They have Drake London.
That's true.
They have Kyle Pitts.
True.
Right? They have a good team. They just didn't. Raheem Morris was not the coach to bring out the talent to get them to the playoffs. I think that's true because he botched the quarterback spot. The quarterback handles the ball on every play. Right?
Yeah. I mean, you make a very good argument. I'm going to need to deep dive on this and see how I feel.
Who do you think's number 2?
I really like the Giants.
Oh, I'm sorry. I would say I agree with that. I would say the Falcons.
No, but
I said the Giants are 1. The Ravens. Actually, I think the Ravens are 1.
Thank God.
Right, for sure. The Ravens are 1. I think it's a toss-up actually between the Giants and the Falcons.
No, and that's why when you were saying that was a very good argument. That's why I'm like, okay, maybe I need to think about it because for me, before John Harbaugh, literally 2 hours ago, in my mind, we were going to come on and speak about the firings. I'd be like, okay, the Giants is a great job for a bunch of like Kevin Stefanski, maybe Cliff Kingsbury. Some people still want John Gruden, who isn't even in the odds right now. He's still suing the NFL. Don't think, Roger Goodell let that happen anytime soon, him being a head coach. I thought the Giants were a great job. You make a very good argument about the Falcons, though, because you're right. Jalen Walker, you just have the 2025 draft picks I was just talking about. Jalen Walker, James Pierce. James Pierce had a phenomenal year. Your secondary's not bad. Your defensive line was great. Drake London, Kyle Pitts, Bijan Robinson. The offensive line is very good. There was a little injury here and there, but I think overall the offensive line was fine.
Their defense is better than the Giants. Their offense is better than the Giants, too.
A lot of teams were better than the Giants' defense.
No, but I'm saying in terms of a toss-up of who's number 2 there, if you wanted to go, the best place to go. A lot of people say the Giants have a lot of talent. I'm not so sure.
Ooh.
I mean, Cam Scatterboo, maybe he's good. He it's a pretty small sample size. Same with Jackson Dart. It's a small sample size. The guy, he thinks he's a linebacker out there, getting concussed almost every other game. So I think the jury's out on him. In fact, the sports people are saying, you know what? If Mendoza is available to the Giants, if they had the 1 pick, they should draft him and trade Dart.
I thought that was
I don't know if people that really have that 100% confidence that Dart is the franchise quarterback. And if that's true, then I still think the Falcons are have just a little bit of a nod. I would give them.
Very, very fair.
Number 2.
All right, well, coming up, it's your weekly report. We still have that to do. What a week 18 it was. We're going to barrel through that. Don't worry here. Right here on the Harvey Hour, we got to break down a bunch of the games. There were a lot of crazy games this week. But yeah, we'll break that down in front of the Super Wildcard Weekend. We make our picks and break down all the matchups on Friday's show, so stay tuned for that. But yeah, we'll be recapping all of Week 18 right after this 30-second break.
Using Wi-Fi without NordVPN could mean sharing your private stuff with more people than you think. Stay safe on public Wi-Fi. Get NordVPN's special offer and encrypt your internet connection. NordVPN. Online security starts with a click.
All right, welcome back to the Harvey Hour. My name is Nathan Harvey. It's great to have you in today on a Tuesday. As always, I'm joined alongside my dad, Stephen Harvey. Let's get into our next topic of today's show, which is talking about your weekly recap. So every week throughout this NFL season, we did a new topic where you recap every single game, give your headline and takeaway from each and every single game. So let's begin with Saturday's games. We had 2 Saturday games because there was no Monday Night Football, so they were on ESPN. So take it away with your first takeaway from Saturday's games.
The Bucs win 16-14, but the Panthers make the playoffs with the Falcons winning against the Saints, which is poetic justice, I think, given how poorly the Bucs played at the end of this and down the stretch there. And the Bucs beat the Panthers to take the NFC South lead, but when the Falcons beat the Saints, it was the Panthers who backed into the number 4 playoff seed. The Panthers back into the playoffs with an 8-9 record. The Bucs sputtered to win with 1 TD and 3 field goals in that game. The Bucs were 0-8 in games where Mayfield threw an interception before overcoming his 9th pick in that last game. He was terrible down the stretch. You got to say, he looked like he did when we were saying, you know what, he'll never start again in the NFL. There may have been Mike Evans in last game as a Buck. We'll have to wait and see. Bryce Young had a decent game, 24-35, 266 yards, 2 TDs and 1 interceptions. Their running game, once so powerful and overpowering, was nowhere to be seen with only 19 yards rushing. My prediction, and we're going to talk about the playoffs games on Friday, is that the Panthers are going to get stomped by the Rams.
We have to remember,
they're going to get stomped by the Rams.
They did lose to the
Rams. That's just the revenge factor is there, man. Those guys are going to be drooling to play these guys. They're going to kill them.
Probably. No, I do think, though, yeah, with the Panthers offense.
8-9, you don't deserve to even be in the playoffs.
Yeah, probably not. But I will say this was an unfortunate game for the Buccaneers because you win, but you don't even make it in the playoffs. But again, I said this, was it on Friday's show, that it doesn't matter who wins these games. You're going to get killed in the playoffs anyway. It was the same thing as what I think about in the AFC, same situation. The 2 teams playing to make it into a playoff spot, they're going to get killed. Steelers, Ravens, I think the Steelers are going to get killed. I thought the Ravens would have gotten killed. I think the Panthers or the Bucs would get killed, and I think the Panthers going up against the Los Angeles Rams, they're going to get absolutely destroyed.
Yeah.
You can't have the best part of your offense was Rico Dowdle rushing for 200 yards. That was the best part of your offense. Well, when you run it 7 times for 10 yards, it's not going to be helpful.
19 yards rushing between him and Hubbard.
Yeah, 14 carries, 19 yards. That's 1.4 yards a carry. I just think, the Bucs, they started the year 5-1.
I think they were 6-2.
They were 6-2, 5-1 to start the year. Yeah. Right. Then they go 2-8. They end the season 3-8. But Baker Mayfield, statistically, before this game, was statistically the worst quarterback in the NFL. And so they didn't deserve to make it into the playoffs. I thought that the way that Baker played wasn't great. I thought the loss of Mike Evans maybe was a big factor here because Mike Evans had some big impact plays. He had 160 yards in a game not too long ago.
He wasn't the same after he came back from his second injury. He just didn't have it.
Right. And I just think the season was basically over. You try, but you don't have it left. I just think that this is an unfortunate situation for the Panthers in this game not to win. But you had several opportunities throughout the year. If you didn't lose to this team or if you didn't lose to the Saints, you would be in the playoffs, and you are in the playoffs, but you would have made it a long time ago. This game, to me, it just screamed you screamed NFC South in this game.
Yeah.
16-14. This is the worst division of football.
One of the ugliest games you could ever watch.
I completely agree. Let's go with the next one here.
Seahawks get the number 1 seed with a 13-3 win over the 49ers. With only 3 points, the 49ers offense was nowhere to be found. Seattle beat them soundly in the air and on the ground. And there was really a statement win by the Seattle Seahawks. Darnold, 20 of 26, 198 yards, playing mistake-free football, which is key for him. Walker and Charbonnet together, ground and pound. Walker with 97 yards and Charbonnet with 74. Purdy and McCaffrey were pitiful in this game. Purdy, 19 of 22, 127 yards, no touchdowns and an interception. McCaffrey, 8 rushes for 23 yards. Says a lot about the Seattle defense, one of the best in the league. Seattle's Seahawks are the number 1 seed now and have a championship caliber defense. The past 3 times they've had the number 1 seed, they made it to the Super Bowl. They won their last 10 playoff games in front of the 12, so they're going to be playing at home with the 12th fan there. The 12th player is their fan base in that stadium where it keeps the sound in. It's the loudest stadium in the league. The 49ers offense that had been the best since Purdy's return couldn't do anything against the Seahawks defense. Salah's defense played very well. That wasn't the reason they lost the game. It was the offense.
Well, I thought Salah's defense, again, it's shocking how well Robert Salah's done. And by the way, he is getting another head coaching interview. I forgot exactly what the team was. I had it here before. But yeah, Robert Salah's getting a call at least for one team to become their next head coach. And
Falcons.
I think that's rightfully so.
Falcons would be a good spot for him.
That's not a bad one. But I do think that this was exactly what I talked about on Friday's show when I made my Harvey Hot Hand pick, which was the Seahawks minus 1.5 or minus 2.5 against the San Francisco 49ers. Because you have to look at, the 49ers had, the best offense? Is that what your data says? The best offense since Purdy got back from Mac Jones's tremendous run?
Yeah.
Number 1 offense? We have to realize that offense played the Cardinals, Panthers, Browns, Titans, Colts, and Bears, who have a terrible defense. The Bears was by far their best win. But you have to realize they played against literally the bottom of the barrel.
Yeah.
Cardinals, Panthers, Browns, Titans, Colts with Phillip Rivers. And then the Bears was a great win. So when you're playing a legitimate good team that's bounced all around, special teams wasn't great in this game, but the season, Myers has done a great job. K9, Zach Charbonnet had a great game in this one. Sam Darnold's been instrumental all year, and that defense has been great. And Mac McDonald on the road, he's I think he's now 15-4, I think. He might be 15-2 now. But he's incredible on the road. I just think that you met a brick wall. Shocking. You ran into it and fell backwards. I think, again, the playoffs will have to wait and see. But I just think ultimately, this I kind of saw.
Seahawks looks like the real deal.
Their defense played like the Legion of Boom.
They're going to play at home. They get the home field all the way through the play until they play the NFC Championship game. Would be in Seattle.
Yeah, I think it was a great performance. Sam Darnold played very efficient football. They ran the ball at an incredible clip. JSN did a great job, and they did everything to stop the major firepower of the 49ers, which has been let McCaffrey touch it 30 times, and he'll just be instrumental. And they stopped that. So big props to the Seahawks. 49ers, I think they'll be fine. All right, let's go to the next one here.
Texans clinched the 5 seed with 38-30 win over the Colts. Riley Leonard and the Colts gave the Texans a run for their money. But in the end, Houston pulled it out to prevent DeMeco Ryans from looking like a dummy. And they did pull it out at the end. The Texans' number 1 defense didn't look so great in this one, giving up 30 points, but they were resting some of their starters, so maybe that had something to do with it for sure. Extended their winning streak to 9 games, 3rd straight playoff appearance now. Leonard had 270 yards, 2 TDs, and ran for 1 score, but also lost a fumble and threw an interception. But he's a rookie, and I think he showed something. Maybe he'll get a chance to compete for the starting job next year. 7 straight loss for the Colts, who wind up with an 8-9 record after starting 8-2. Taylor rushed for only 26 yards in this game, wound up with 1,585 yards for the year, wound up second to Cook. He could have been the leading rusher, but he kind of fell off a cliff there near the end of the season.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I'll give a lot of props to Riley Leonard. I said that instead of pumping like hip-hop music, they should blast funeral music because I thought this would be an absolute funeral. I thought it would be a bloodbath. And the Texans, yikes. They got cooked by Riley Leonard. Leonard had basically an 84 QBR scale of 0 to 100. The defense wasn't great. The offense wasn't all that great. Congrats to Riley Leonard. My God.
Maybe they should have played him instead of the grandpa.
You play that well against the number 1 defense?
Maybe they should have played him instead of grandpa.
Hey, Phillip Rivers was fun to watch.
He was fun to watch, but, his first game, anything he threw looked like a wounded duck.
That's true.
That
first game against Seattle was rough.
It was statue in the pocket. I don't know why they didn't let Riley Leonard play more.
Well, I just think that you were, you thought you still had hope. So instead of throw a rookie in there, bring in a veteran. Again, he wasn't a veteran. He was a veteran 5 years ago. But bring in a more experienced player who has more professional NFL
He's
experience.
44 years old.
I understand.
Been sitting on the couch for 5 years.
He nearly beat the Seahawks, though.
I think it was a mistake.
He nearly beat the Seahawks.
Yeah, well, maybe Riley Leonard would have beat him.
Maybe.
Look how he played against the Texans.
Honestly, I don't know if this is a hot take. I don't know what people out there would think about. If Alec Pierce doesn't bump the ref and get ejected, there's a shot they beat the Texans.
Yeah.
Because they were winning through large parts of this game. I thought Riley Leonard played an absolutely tremendous several series of football there. Again, Daniel Jones coming back. I thought, the new owner of the Colts, she says that she's bringing back Chris Ballard and Shane Steichen, but
Steichen gave props to Riley Leonard, said he played great in that game.
She made it very, very clear, though. They need to make the playoffs or have a level of success, or they're both out.
Yeah.
That was very clear in the press conference.
I think that's leadership.
I would agree, but I'll give a lot of props to Riley Leonard. You played an absolutely tremendous game. Texans, you're scaring me a little bit. You were 10.5-point favorites, and
they
were
were
losing.
resting some of the people.
You were losing through decent portions of this, but I kind of agree with that.
Okay, here we go. The Giants, all right, went out and beat the Cowboys 34-17 in a meaningless game. They succeeded in moving down further in the 226 draft order. Now they're drafting number 5. So 2 weeks ago, the Giants were in line for the number 1 draft pick, but with 2 wins in a row, they're at number 5, which is enough to make you sick. I really think, why'd they do that? I don't understand it. They know what Jackson Dart is. They need to have him proving it more. They should have been tanking for those games. The Giants show off their offensive skills in a meaningless game, dropping them to number 5 in the 26th draft when they were they could have had the number 1 pick with a loss last week and the Raiders and a loss to the Cowboys. And the Raiders won. I mean, they had a second chance. They could have lost that game. The Raiders went out and won. I mean, the Raiders knew that the Giants had won, so they tried. Maybe if they knew the Giants had lost, they would have tanked and not won. But Dart had 2 TD passes, played great, 22 of 32, 231. That's great. Starters played the whole game. Dallas treated it like it was an exhibition game with Prescott. He only played the first half. The first Cowboys loss to the Giants since 2020. Can you believe it? With 9 wins in a row. It's the first time they've lost them.
Yeah, and I think that's really what's insult to injury there. For the second straight year, lined up for the future of your franchise to go out and get a quarterback, you all of a sudden win meaningless football games. Last year, Drew Lock had a performance of his lifetime against the Indianapolis Colts. You fall out of the number 1 pick. This year, you go up against the Raiders, 2 teams that each had 2 wins, and you beat them. And this week, all you had to do was lose, and you obliterate the Dallas Cowboys. If you lost that game, as you said, you would have had the number 1 overall pick.
They had 2 chances at it. They blew it twice.
Right. And Joe Shane, he's spearheading the head coaching search. Don't know
Wonderful.
if I love that, but I do kind of agree.
They're going for Harbaugh for sure. Shane he's somebody that is weaseled his way around in the organization to hang on to his job.
Yeah.
Right? He's not going to risk anything here. He's going with a proven commodity.
Yeah.
And then it won't be his fault if Harbaugh fails.
But you have to realize, think about it's shocking how he stayed, because think about the recent history. You franchise tag Daniel Jones. No, excuse me. You should have franchise tagged Daniel Jones. You signed Daniel Jones to a $40 million extension. You try franchise tagging Saquon Barkley. He gets pissed off, but he plays on the franchise tag. You wouldn't give him $250,000 more of his contract, so he leaves to go to the Eagles. Year 1 of the Eagles, he breaks NFL history and wins the Super Bowl. Somehow you survive that. Then you win meaningless games. Then you draft Abdul Carter, which is a fine pick, and Brian Dable pushed to get Jackson Dart. Those are 2 fine picks. But in the offseason, you acquire Russell Wilson, and you start him. Yikes. Not good. Russell Wilson, he tore his hamstring before the Cowboys game. I don't know if I fully believe that, but whatever the case may be. Then this season turns out to be a disaster. By the way, building through the trenches. Your defense was dead last in everything, basically. You couldn't stop Jahmyr Gibbs. You couldn't stop anybody. The defense was abysmal. You had the worst secondary in the NFL. By far. Wasn't even close. Your linebacker group needs work. Your secondary, you weren't playing with one. They were that bad. So the fact that he was still able to go out there, outside of Malik Nabers, you had Wan'Dale Robinson, who had a career year. I couldn't believe how well he played.
He's the only one that they had to throw to.
Right. And I just think that the fact that you have nobody on defense, and now you're going to this year saying, what do? We need a new head coach. If they don't go out, and I understand people might be thinking about different things, but because you have the 5th overall pick, first of all, not having the number 1 pick, it kills the chance of you trading back to get massive amounts of draft capital. So that, even if you don't draft number 1, officially, like, put in a pick for number 1.
Particularly with Mendoza there.
Right.
Right? With Mendoza there, people are going to trade up to get him.
Absolutely.
You could have gotten 2-3 first-round picks.
Right. No, I completely agree. And I think that with the number 5 pick, we'll do our mocks out in April. You got to go secondary. Go get Caleb Downs. He's the best defensive back by far. Go get him. Because literally, you have nobody in that secondary. You got to fix it. Because think about it. Your pass rush wasn't great. You couldn't stop anybody. Mm-hmm. And we saw it with the Cowboys. As soon as they got a little bit of a pass rush when Overshown came back and Logan Wilson, everybody was there, all of a sudden, the worst secondary in the NFL, it had more time to operate because you were able to get a pass rush. The Giants had basically no pass rush. Mm-hmm. And the defensive line that they spent a bunch of money on, and they drafted Abdul Carter, and you have Dexter Lawrence, you got Brian Burns, you have Okereke, you have a bunch of guys. And through the first 12 weeks, Abdul Carter had 1.5 sacks. Mm-hmm. That's unacceptable.
Do you think Brian Daboll thinks, I wish I hadn't pissed off Wink Martindale?
Absolutely.
I wished I hadn't pissed that guy off.
Absolutely.
Because I wound up with Shane Bowen, and he was horrible.
Correct.
And I couldn't fire him because I'd already messed it up with Wink Martindale. So I put that one on Brian Daboll.
I would not disagree. And I also think that we have to realize Wink Martindale that Giants defense was the first NFC team to beat Lamar Jackson. So we're talking about what did the Giants do back in 2022? Hand Lamar Jackson his first ever NFC loss. That's what it did.
Wink Martindale was a good defensive coordinator.
He was a great defensive coordinator.
He had a bad year because the talent was terrible.
Right. And now you have Shane Bowen, who couldn't do anything with anybody.
Who had much better talent, too. They went out and got more players.
Their pass rush should have been significantly better than it was with just the sheer amount of fiber. Brian Burns had a phenomenal year. He was the only one doing anything, though.
Yeah.
Abdul Carter, he was a no-show. And again, there was some off of being late to stuff, so he's benched for the first series of the first quarter. It was kind of interesting to look at, but no, the Giants should have been better than they are. So you won a meaningless game. You went from the potential number 1 to number 5. It's the New York Giants. Back-to-back years they did that. All right, let's go to the next one.
Okay, the Browns win 20-18 on the last second field goal as Garrett gets the sack record. The Browns defense stops the Bengals' attack with a 2018 win and Myles Garrett setting the record for sacks. Burrow threw 3 TDs in this game, but the kicker missed 2 extra points, and they failed on the 2-point conversion after the third TD. So they wound up with 18 points. If they just kicked 3 extra points, they would have won the game. Otherwise, they would have tied or won in this game, even if they got that 2-point conversion. The Browns' 2 DDs were both scored by the defense.
Yeah.
Sanders led a 40-yard drive at the end of the game to set up the last second to 49-yard field goal. I guess that's a nice way to end this season on an up note. It was an ugly game with the only bright spot being Garrett setting the record for the sacks that came late in the fourth quarter. I mean, he almost didn't get it, and it was helping to stop a Bengals drive. So it was important. So, overall, the one thing the Browns fans have to be happy for is Myles Garrett got the sack record.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. No, hold on. You also beat Joe Burrow. You have that, under your belt.
Yeah.
Shedeur Sanders beats Joe Burrow. It's a great headline for a lot of people. But yeah, we have to realize that this offense did nothing the entire game. You had a pick 6 and a fumble return touchdown. That's what the Browns did all game. Their defense outside of that wasn't too great. Again, you said Joe Burrow had 3 touchdowns. Special teams was
3
terrible.
touchdowns, and they got 18 points out of it. They couldn't kick the extra points, and they couldn't get a 2-point conversion.
Right. And I also think, again, we could say the Browns, Shedeur's not great. He had an 11.9 QBR. His QBR for the season was the 9th out of 10 worst QBRs Browns rookies have had since the stat came out in 2006. I could say all of that. I also could add context on they don't have a great roster. They just fired their head coach. I could do all of that. That's fine.
Yeah.
But this was all about the defense. This is all about unlucky. It was the perfect way for the Bengals to end their season. With the way this season panned out, Joe Burrow, the offense was weird. Offensive line was terrible. You bring in Joe Flacco. He does fine. There was big. Is Joe Flacco? Should they not have spent $55 million a year on Joe Burrow? Look at how the offense is. You lose to the Jets. The locker room implodes on itself. Joe Burrow comes back, beats the crap out of the Baltimore Ravens. Then you get shut out by the Ravens, and you finish this season with a loss to Shedeur Sanders and the Cleveland Browns.
And the coach keeps his job.
And the director of player personnel, Duke Tobin, also keeps his job.
Yeah, I don't get it.
This season is exactly the way the Bengals are. You have a lot of talent, but you screw it up. And you keep the issues. That's exactly what happens. Congratulations to the Bengals. You will be in the same place you are next year. Unless you all of a sudden do something uncharacteristic and spend money on big-time defensive people.
Which ain't going to happen.
And plus, Trey Hendrickson is already gone because you pissed him off too. All right, let's go to the next one here.
Falcons win 19-17 over the Saints, which knocks the Bucs out of the playoffs. The Falcons win again and went down to the wire, but it wasn't enough to keep Raheem Morris from getting fired. Tyler Shook, a good game, 23 of 35, 259 yards, a touchdown and an interception. He had that costly interception when the Saints were driving for the lead. I think the Saints would have won the division if they had started Shug over Rattler earlier in the season. The defense played better and better as the season progressed. Actually, have a very good defense at the end of the year. In this game, they held Robinson to only 33 yards rushing. That's great. The Falcons could have also had a good shot to win the division if they had started Cousins sooner, I think. And we talked about, I've said that repeatedly. They fired Morris, and they also fired the GM after the game, and then they've made this crazy adjustments in the front office with bringing Matt Ryan in, who had no experience. So it'll be interesting to see what the Falcons wind up doing. Yeah,
I think Tyler Shough definitely gave himself the opportunity to at least compete for a starting job if they don't want him to be the quarterback of the future. But I think he deserves to be QB1 going forward.
For sure.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think that if they started Tyler Shough, other games would be much closer than they were, or you could have won a couple of games. Yeah. And I think that you had an opportunity, if you didn't start Spencer Rattler, that you may have, based on how the division panned out and how the Bucs crumbled, have an opportunity to actually beat the Bucs in your regular season games and or early on, and then potentially make the playoffs. Although that would have been a big stretch, I just think you would have had a better opportunity to do it. But yeah, I thought the Falcons, again, they played fine. They played relatively complimentary football. Kirk Cousins didn't do too much. He did have one interception. But this was basically just we're out of the playoffs, so we'll just play. There was a number out there. I think, I should remember, I think last 3 years, I may get this wrong, last 3 years, as soon as the Falcons are out of playoff contention, they're 13-4. Think about that. 13-4 when they're out of playoff contention.
Yeah.
So they are literally playing, we have nothing to lose at this point. Maybe play like that more often.
It's coaching.
It's coaching. Could be coaching.
It's coaching.
Yeah, but I absolutely, I mean, what I think was the biggest part about this season for the Saints is Kellen Moore figured something out with Tyler Shough, and the offense was fine. The offense looked good. So if you could continue that into next year, you could compete for the worst division in football.
I think the Saints will be good next year. Their defense looks very good, and they don't need Shough to be. If they have a great defense, and they could, I don't know what happened to Alvin Kamara. He was nowhere to be seen this year. Maybe he's getting too old and he's done. But you need a good running back. They have Olave as a wide receiver.
Yep.
Maybe they get another. They could get another really good number 2 there. Why they let Shaheed,
Rashid Shaheed?
Yeah, why they let him go is beyond me. But maybe they got it.
They got a third-round pick for him.
Third-round pick. Well, still, that guy is good.
Look what the Seahawks are doing.
That
with
guy
him.
is good. He's very good. I'm surprised they let him go. They shouldn't have done that.
All right, let's go to the next one here.
Okay, the Vikings win 5th straight. The 16-3 as the Packers rest their starters. The Vikings win, but McCarthy sustains another injury. Why he gets hurt so often is truly a mystery. McCarthy played well in the first half, 14-23, 182 yards, but left early in the third quarter with soreness in his throwing hand. He missed 7 games and parts of 2 others with injuries and missed all of 2024 with a knee injury. I just don't know. This guy's got to find a way to stay healthy. Jefferson, he had 101 yards receiving and reached the 1,000-yard mark for the sixth straight season to keep pace with two leaders there, Evans and Randy Moss. He wouldn't have had any trouble if he'd had any quarterback that could throw him the ball this year. The guy is a real professional. Why he didn't get all upset like A.J. Brown and make a lot of noise about all of that? As I give the guy a lot of credit because the quarterback play for the Vikings this year was pitiful. The Vikings eliminated 3 weeks ago, kept playing to win 3 in a row, and wind up with a winning record of 9-8. I think that says a lot about O'Connell, that he kept their locker room together, and despite being out of it a long time ago, they won out at the end of the season. Clayton Tune, who started for the Packers, was 6 for 11 for 34 yards. Huh? I doubt he'll be getting another start anytime soon. I think it'll be a start that will be easy for the Packers fans to forget.
Oh, yeah, big time. I thought, Clayton Tune starting, Vikings 7.5-point favorites, that was an easy bet for me. Again, J.J. McCarthy, he's gotten better. He's gotten significantly better since the last time we saw him, where he played 2 good quarters out of 10. So he's been playing a little bit better. But again, injury here, injury there. You got to figure out a way to have a stable quarterback situation. I think the biggest thing is all the veterans on that team are doing the right thing and still having confidence in their quarterback. I feel terrible for Justin Jefferson. He's been Kirk Cousins. Then he had to deal with Jaron Hall, Joshua Dobbs. You had to deal with J.J. McCarthy, Max Brosmer. You go down the list of who played for them. Nick Mullins, too. Go down the list of just quarterbacks that he's had to play with that are not great.
Yeah, Darnold was good.
Sam Darnold as well. Yeah, he was fine.
Cousins was good.
He had a really good 8 games and tore his Achilles. So he only had half the year that year. But, no, I think that J.J. McCarthy needs to improve. He needs to be healthier. He's already sustained a cataclysmic injury his rookie year in the preseason that took him out the rest of the year. The Packers, they're fortunate they rested a bunch of people because this was an embarrassing game. They could do absolutely nothing. They scored 3 points, and it took them to the fourth quarter to do it. So, I don't know. Clayton Tune, strung a bad note. Let's go to the next one.
Yeah, very funny.
Thank you.
Okay. The Jaguars continue their winning ways with a 41-7 win over the Titans. The Jags win 41-7, pounding the Titans in the mouth, cruising to victory and the title for the NFC South. Lawrence was 22 of 30, 255 yards and 3 touchdowns. The guy has arrived. He is living up to the hype and his contract value here. They clinched the third division title in 9 years and will be the number 3 seed, hosting Buffalo in the wildcard game this weekend. They won 8 in a row. Ward was hurt for the Tennessee on the first series and didn't return. Lawrence had 38 total TDs this year, 29 passing, 9 rushing, and passed for 4,000 yards. So he had a very good year. McCoy for the Titans is the interim coach, 2-9. I don't think you'll hear from him again.
I thought, Trevor Lawrence and Liam Cohen, it's worked. And it's worked out very, very well. So much so that there are true questions. Who's going to win on Sunday? Is it going to be Josh Allen or is it going to be Trevor Lawrence? I think that's a perfectly fine bet. And I think this season, Jacksonville has earned the right for that to be a legitimate question.
Yeah.
Will they beat Josh Allen, the 2024 MVP, and the Buffalo Bills? I think that is a seriously good question. We're going to discuss it on Friday. And I think the way Trevor Lawrence has played with Liam Cohen as of late, the last 8 games has been absolutely incredible. The rushing touchdowns, as you mentioned, his completion percentage has skyrocketed. Mm-hmm. His effectiveness on the field has been tremendous. He had a 6 total touchdown game after having, a 5 touchdown game the game before. So I think, you beat up on what I said all year, not a football team. The Tennessee Titans weren't a football team this year. Cam Ward got injured. Unfortunately, it's not as bad as what people thought. They're just not a good team. They need an offensive line.
I think the Jaguars, I think the Bills should be very worried.
I would be, yes.
I'd be very worried because the Jaguars have a lot of confidence. They've won 8 in a row. They finally learned Cohen's offense, and they're making it click. I think they're very dangerous.
I completely agree. Let's go to the next one here.
Okay, the Rams rebound to beat the Cardinals 37-20 with Stafford throwing 4 more touchdowns. The Rams played their starters to get back in a winning groove. They moved into the 5 seed and now have something to prove. The Rams beat the Cardinals team that had not won in 2 months, so I'm not sure you too many high fives there. It didn't look like they were ready to play, losing late into the third quarter. They were behind. Then they got it going with 2 touchdown passes by Stafford, who was 25 of 40, 259 yards and 4 touchdowns. He finished the season with 46 touchdowns and 4,700 yards passing. But I think his performance down the stretch here, where he threw a bunch of interceptions, and the Rams lost a bunch of those games. We were saying the Rams are the best team in the NFL. I think that opened the door for Drake May, who I think will get the MVP. The Cardinals season was over long ago. They fired Gannon, and it will be interesting to see what they do with Kyler Murray. The 5 seed looks like a good spot for the Rams, who will play the Panthers with revenge on their minds from the earlier season loss, and I think they're going to pound the Panthers.
Yeah, and I completely agree with you. This Rams team again, but here's what the shocking part was. The Cardinals led in late in the third quarter in this game, so much so that the ESPN win-loss prediction got as close as 53% for the Rams. So again, they have these moments of what the hell are the Rams doing? Why are the Cardinals winning 20-16? What's going on here? And then the fourth quarter, you drop 14 points and you pull away. This was it a 10.5 point spread, 7.5, something like that? It was a decently high point spread, and I think I bet it for the Harvey hot end. I had it here for a second. Sure, what was the point spread? It was 7.5. Yeah. Now I actually got close to this. I said they win 31-20. I got half of that right. But yeah, I just think ultimately the Rams, they've shown some weakness. If Matt Stafford is slow or turns the ball over, they lose to the Panthers. If he's not at the top of his game, they lose to the Seahawks. What if they don't pick off Sam Darnold 4 times? Do they lose that game as well?
Yeah.
There's been a couple, special teams. Yeah. What are they doing early in the season with the special teams?
They fired their special teams coordinator.
Exactly. So I think that there are ebbs and flows with the Rams so far, but I think that this was a good. And here's the big one though. I don't know if you're going to say it.
Davante Adams.
That is what I was going to say. He is coming back and is expected to play against the Carolina Panthers. I can't believe it. He led the league in receiving touchdowns this season.
Yeah.
And he was the option 2. He was like the red zone guy. So I think having him back, I think Matt Stafford will, again, be at the top of his game. He played a fine game in this one, but the fact that the Cardinals were winning at one point without Marvin Harrison Jr., Michael Wilson had a really good game. They had no running game at all. I think that ultimately the Rams will be fine. They'll blow out the Panthers. No worry about that.
Okay. Broncos get the number 1 seed with a 19-3 win over the Chargers. The Broncos got their win and the 1 seed, while the Chargers starters got rest. As the Chargers are getting healthy for the playoffs, which probably was best. I do think it was best for not to play Justin Herbert, because he's taken such a pounding all year with their offensive line being so bad. Getting a week to rest will be a good thing for them, but as a Patriots fan, I'm worried. I'm worried about that game with the Harbaugh coming in there as the coach, and the way they played so poorly last year in the playoffs. They're going to be fired up for this game. I think I'm not sure. I'll be picking the Patriots for sure, but I'll be worried about it. Bo Nix had a poor game in passing for just 38 yards in the first half and only 141 overall. He tied Russell Wilson's record of 24 wins in his first 2 NFL seasons, so that's pretty impressive. Chargers had no chance to win the division, so they rested Herbert and some other starters too, which I think was the right move. The Broncos stopped the Chargers on 11 of their 12 drives. Trey Lance was 20 of 44, 136 yards, no touchdowns and interceptions. He took 4 sacks. The Denver defense had 68 sacks for the season, 4 shy of the record by the 1984 Bears. Keenan Allen, he got 7 catches and some yards that allowed him to collect a $1 million incentive bonus. So I'm sure he was happy about that.
Well, it took him 13 targets to do it. If you're resting your starters, why are you playing a big-time veteran like Keenan Allen that often?
Want that $1 million.
Absolutely. And you know what? Good
they
for him.
got it for him.
It took him 13 targets, 7 catches to get 36 yards.
He owes some of that money to Trey Lance.
But I'll also say this. This is really all I'm going to say about it. The Broncos, they were fine. They were playing a resting team. So be it. They could have played even worse than that, and I wouldn't have said much about it. I will say this, though. I will bask in the glory of me being right again. So I'm sorry for anyone who thinks I'm in over my head. I was right on Trey Lance. At the time, I said, Mike Silver said, get a 3rd-round pick for him. That's probably the best you're going to get. I said, go for it. Get as much as you can. Because they weren't going to use him. They had Brock Purdy or whatever the case may be. I was right about Trey Lance. So anyone who's saying, give him more time, no, he's terrible. He's terrible. And he wasn't great in this game either. So I think, Trey Lance, the 49ers, if they could go back and make one or change one decision over Kyle Shanahan's tenure, it's not trading 3 first-round picks to go get Trey Lance. So, there you go. That's all I'll say about it. Trey Lance, I was right about him. All right, let's go to the next one here.
Raiders beat Chiefs 14-12 with Carlson's 60-yard field goal with 8 seconds left. That was pretty impressive. The Raiders beat the Chiefs in a meaningless game, with the Raiders finishing the season 3-14. Management fired Pete Carroll, giving him all of the blame. So the win ended the Raiders' 10-game losing streak. Despite the win, the Raiders still get the first pick in the draft because the Giants went out there and won. Hey, wow. They'll remember that win for a long time, right? Carroll said he would like to return instead of retiring, so they had to fire him. The Chiefs sat a lot of their starters, and so did the Raiders, actually. It was an ugly game with no TDs. Only 4 field goals by each team, and somewhere along the line, there must have been a safety. I couldn't find it, but that's the reason they won by 16-14. What was the final score?
14-12.
14-12. Each kicker had 4
Correct.
field
There was
goals.
a safety.
There was a safety, yeah.
Oh, I just think.
Is that a game you want to watch?
No.
Come on. That's terrible.
No, this is a game. Unless, obviously, you're a fan of these two teams, but I think a lot of Chiefs fans decided once Mahomes went down that the season was over. So I'm not sure how many Chiefs fans finished out the year watching, a 3rd string and ultimately a 4th string quarterback wrap up the season. No, this is a game that you just check the box for. Oh, the Chiefs lost. Oh, the Raiders lost, or the Raiders won. Cool. No, I think that this is a game that you don't even put in the corner. This is one that you check the box score in afterwards because nobody cares. This had no real, ramifications on. Who knows?
The Raiders wound up with the 1st-round pick, even though they won.
Yeah, even though they won. I will say something, though. Aiden O'Connell. He had a sub 50% completion percentage, but here's the big one. No turnovers. No interceptions.
Yeah.
So, congratulations to him, at least. He's not Geno Smith. That's the best thing you can say. He's not Geno Smith.
He might have got a chance during the year, but he's hurt most of the year, right? He was on the IR for most of the year.
Oh, I just think also you paid Geno that amount of money. I'll also say Travis Kelce, this was probably his last game. He's probably done.
Why would he want to play any longer? He can marry Taylor Swift. She's got like $1 billion, and he's set for life.
Fair enough. All right, let's go to the next one here.
All right, the next one is the Patriots handle the Dolphins easily with a 38-10 win. Drake May had an outstanding season, worthy of an MVP. Will he win it over Stafford? We'll have to wait and see. Vrabel leads the Patriots from worst to first in the AFC East. Stevenson scores 3 TDs against the Dolphins in an easy win. Drake May, we built this identity and played to it, and good things happen. Finished 14-3, will be the number 2 seed playing the Chargers at home. Miami at 7-10, had second straight losing season. The GM was fired, but McDaniel will keep his job. Diggs had 34 yards, a 34-yard catch that put him over 1,000 yards for the 7th time. That's the quietest 1,000 yards I think I've ever seen. I watched all the Patriots game. I can't remember him having that many big games that would get him over 1,000 yards, but he did it. Borregales, I guess that's how you pronounce his name, had a 59-yard field goal just before halftime. And the one thing I'll say here is, the GM being fired by the Dolphins, they're allowing Mike McCarthy to play a role in hiring a new GM. How's that the new GM going to feel when the coach, who really is supposed to work for the GM, right, it has a say in who gets hired. I don't get that. I don't think that's the right thing to do.
I'll also say this. The GM will look at that situation and be like, well, I probably won't lose my job before you will. So regardless of, if he has a process in hiring me, I'll stay longer than you. That's the way you might look at it. But I think a lot of props to Ramondre Stevenson. After not being able to hold on to the football early in the year, and then getting injured, and Travion Henderson comes onto the scene and lights it up entirely, to then come back and run very, very well. He had 2 touchdowns in this game. He only touched it 7 times, had over 130 yards. Travion Henderson added 2 touchdowns as well. The running game was very, very good against the Dolphins. I think the defense was fine. I think Quinn Ewers played, again, all right.
Yeah.
Again, expectations. Tua's probably out there as well. He was asked about, if he'd like to play elsewhere, and he said, hey, it seems fine. So he's probably on the move as well this offseason. They will have to eat some of the cap and then trade him away. Drake May, though, in order for him to really seal his MVP case, they would have needed to not run it 34 times for over 230 yards. They would have needed Drake May to throw and score more touchdowns. But they did have 5 total touchdowns.
So you think Stafford might win it?
I think that, again, people are going to argue Stafford should win it. And I think that
I don't know.
No. The argument that, Drake May's a young quarterback, so he'll have more opportunities, that is so stupid.
I don't like that.
Because how do we know Drake May will come back the same or improve off this season's performance? Stafford's older. Then why'd you give Brady an MVP at 42 or 43, 44? When he had 5,300 yards, had like 45 touchdowns, and and was absolutely great. To me, that didn't make a lot of sense. If we're doing it because, he's old and Drake May has more time, okay, well, Rodgers was younger than Brady, and Brady arguably had the better season. For me, I think he should have won MVP that year. He did. Rodgers did. So, again, that argument, it really, really sucks. I just think, Drake May, I think
Drake May should get it.
Okay.
He's a young talent. How many second-year players play that way for a whole season? The guy played like a 10-year veteran this year. He cut his turnovers down to almost nothing.
True.
Right? He played in the system. He learned the new system under McDaniel almost instantly.
Right.
And, while Stafford had a fantastic season, you really could point to him making some mistakes down the stretch that cost them a chance to get the 1 seed.
Oh, big time.
So there was one game where he did something, turned the ball over right at the end when they could have kicked a short field goal to win the game. I think that was the one against the Panthers.
Yeah, they were driving and he fumbled.
Yeah, he fumbled. So,
by the way, who blew out the Panthers?
Is that an
the
MVP?
Patriots.
Is that MVP candidacy? And the Patriots, you're right. The Patriots blew out the Panthers. So, hey, I go for Drake May, but, I'm a little biased.
A little?
Yeah. Okay, onward. The Eagles' 24-17 loss to the Commanders cost them a shot at the NFC 2 seed. I don't get it. Sirianni didn't play the key starters to give them some rest. Even though they dropped to the 3 seed with a loss, he thought that was best. Well, I'm not so sure. I mean, when you have the 2nd seed, you have a chance at 2 home games. Now he hasn't got that. He lost it. He gambled, thinking he could rest the key starters and still beat the Commanders to win the 2nd seed, but his plan backfired when they lost to the 5-12 Washington Commanders. 39-year-old Josh Johnson beat them in a 4th quarter with a passing and a rushing touchdown. Wonder if he'll be back next year. Sirianni, being healthy and going into the playoffs healthy is a big deal for us. The Commanders had lost a season opener 5-12 after making the NFC Championship game last year. They missed out on the possibility of the 2 playoff games at home by dropping to the 3 seed for the Eagles. So this could come back to haunt them big time, and I'm sure I understand that the radio network was hot on this one just this past day or so, by not playing a few more starters to get that win over the hapless Commanders.
I think that was most shocking is not Joe Witt being fired to D.C. because Dan Quinn took over the defensive play calling. What was shocking is Cliff Kingsbury got fired today.
Yeah.
I don't understand that. Jaden Daniels is upset about that. A lot of people are shocked that you would fire the OC. We realized that the guy who led the Commanders to the NFC Championship game was banged up this year. They had to deal with Marcus Mariota and Josh Johnson as their quarterback. And you fire the OC.
Somebody has to be the fall guy for a terrible season when they were expected to compete maybe for the Super Bowl.
You had three quarterbacks this season. And the main guy got injured a lot. And we have to realize that, I don't know if it's Dan Quinn's decision or if it's Cliff Kingsbury's decision. You kept Jaden Daniels out there, and then he fractures his elbow, or he dislocates his elbow. In a game that really was meaningless. You were eliminated from the playoffs anyway, and it was late in the game, and you were getting blown out by the Lions. And then you injure your quarterback. Then you put him back out there, and I think he gets injured again, and then you bench him the rest of the year. You sit him the rest of the year. That's on Dan Quinn.
I think Kingsbury will get a job almost instantly.
Oh, I do as well. I do not see
Cliff
Cliff
even
Kingsbury.
get some interviews for head coach.
That wouldn't surprise me. I think he not has earned the right, but
he's got to be
there's
pissed.
He's
got to be pissed that he got fired.
I don't believe there was any reason to fire Cliff Kingsbury in his second year as OC.
Yeah.
To me, that's ridiculous. Let's go to the next one here.
All right, the Lions beat the Bears 19-16 on Bates' 42-yard field goal as time expired. A bittersweet victory for the Lions that didn't do anything to repair their broken soul, as this was the year they had hoped to make it to the Super Bowl. So Goff led 5 scoring drives, and Bates kicked the 42-yard field goal as time expired. Dan Campbell said, we don't want to be doing that again next year. That's not where we want to be. We've got to get back in it. The Bears didn't score until 2 fourth-quarter TD passes by Williams and a field goal. He set the Bears' franchise passing record, 3,942 yards. Chicago has never had a 4,000-yard passer yet. He got close, but not quite. Maybe he'll get it next year. Ben Johnson said, we've got to play better going forward. We've got to coach better going forward, as well as we're going to turn the page on this one. But he's got to be worried going into the playoffs, losing that game. It could have been a good momentum for them, and they lost. So I don't know. They won the division in Johnson's first season, so they should be happy about that. Whether they get very far in the playoffs or not remains to be seen.
Yeah, I thought Caleb Williams played very, very poorly. First quarter, he went 1 of 2 for 8 yards. Second quarter, 5 of 8 for 37 yards. Third quarter, 5 of 10 for 44 yards and an interception. He didn't play particularly well, and then in the fourth quarter, he had 9 of 13 for 123 yards. So I think realistically, the Lions, they didn't play particularly well. John Morton, their OC, got fired. Dan Campbell already took over play calling anyway, so you knew he was probably going to be fired anyway. David Montgomery, his social media post, he seems a little bit disgruntled, whether he's hanging it up or he's going to demand a trade in the offseason. We'll have to wait and see for that. Jahmyr Gibbs, as we saw this season, took over more of that RB1, and it was less of a 1-2. It was more of a 1, maybe 2 punch combo this season.
1.5.
Yeah, 1.5. Yeah, I would agree with that. Jared Goff, again, this passing offense under Dan Campbell was actually really, really good. He talked about hitting rock bottom. You better have hit rock bottom because, I mean, you dealt with injuries again this season. That's the thing. The past few years, the Lions have just been absolutely mauled by injuries. Terry Arnold went down. Brian Branch went down. And unfortunately, you had Aiden Hutchinson this season. But you were dealing with so many injuries. You were trying to sign guys, figure stuff out, play your second and third stringers. I mean, this was a really difficult season, especially on defense. You also lost Sam Laporta in the middle of the year. Like, you lost a few guys that are really heavy hitters. And then you couldn't figure things out. You weren't as creative as you were with Ben Johnson. That really seemed to take effect. Without Aaron Glenn, I know he did a really bad job defensively with the Jets, and I think that's coming up soon in your weekly report there. I have some numbers about that, but the defense wasn't really the same either without Aaron Glenn. So I think that this is a Lions team that needs to figure itself out. Now, unfortunately, I just saw something here a couple minutes ago that Dan Campbell is going to interview, I want to make sure I get this right.
Cliff Kingsbury.
No, David Blau, if you remember him.
David Blau.
David Blau. He was a former Detroit Lions quarterback that I think also played with the Cardinals in his career.
Okay.
What's with the Lions and other, I know technically it isn't an in-house hire like Morton was, but what's with the nostalgia? How about you go a little bit out? Here's a great OC that has a little bit of creativity that's available. Brian Daboll. Just going to throw it out there.
Cliff Kingsbury.
Just going to throw it out there. Maybe a guy with some creativity who helps out quarterbacks and can figure stuff out.
I don't know. Why wouldn't Dan Campbell continue calling the plays? They had the best passing offense in the league once he
But still, though, bringing in a former quarterback, we already saw that. I don't like that whatsoever. Expand your search a little bit because you just saw what an in-house hire did, and it didn't turn out very well.
Yeah.
And now you're going for a backup quarterback that used to play for you years ago. I don't love that. There's a guy trying to get
particularly
back
when
into
there's
coaching.
some really good OCs out there now.
Yeah,
too.
how about some that are hungry for success, like Brian Daboll? By the way, what a great head coach for the Giants that seems to work. Brian Daboll will be a great fit for the Giants. I don't know, just throwing it out there. Brian Daboll now, perfect fit. Obviously, it's not going to happen.
No.
Also, great option for the Jets. They need a defensive culture. You know, be a great hire for the Jets. Robert Saleh.
Yeah, right. That ain't gonna happen.
Again,
either.
like some of these coaches should have stayed.
Neither one of those guys would even want to go back there.
No,
they
no.
thumb their nose at those
There
guys.
is no
Yeah.
dollar amount to put Robert Saleh back as the head coach of the Jets.
Yeah.
That's just for me. All right, let's go to the next one.
Okay, here we go. The Bills blow out the Jets 35-8 to move up to the 5 seed. The Jets lose big to the Bills in another stinker, raising more questions about Aaron Glenn and his strategic thinker. Mitchell Trubisky threw for 4 touchdowns and was 22 of 29, 259 yards against the Jets. Ray Davis, backup running back, 21 for 151 yards. Brady Cook for the Jets, 11 of 22, 60 yards and a touchdown. The Jets didn't show up to play. They were blown out by the Bills' backups. Despite the Jets having one of their worst seasons in history of the franchise, Aaron Glenn's job appears to be safe. His defense, which is his specialty, was horrible, with not one interception all year.
And that is an NFL record. So here's some numbers I have for you. First off, let's play a little bit of trivia. Can you name the Jets' leading receiver and how many yards they had on the year?
Garrett Wilson was hurt for a good chunk of the year.
He played 7 games.
Played 7 games. So maybe it's Breece Hall.
Garrett Wilson was the leading receiver.
Oh, was he? Okay.
Who had the most touchdown receptions?
Breece Hall.
Garrett Wilson.
Oh, yeah.
With 4.
4.
Think about that. The receiving leader. 395 yards.
3? That's all he had?
Leading receiver.
395.
395 yards. That's absolutely
horrible.
terrible. Like you said, the only team in NFL history to complete an entire season without a single interception. They had 4 takeaways all year.
And Aaron Glenn is a defensive coach.
Correct. And you let Ray Davis, a backup running back, run for 150 yards. Here's another thing. Rich Cimini. The Jets finished with a league-low 759 passing yards in the first half of games. The next closest had 500 more yards, and it was the Las Vegas Raiders. In fact, the Jets' total is the lowest in the league over the last 20 years. The next closest was the 2011 Broncos, led by Tim Tebow, also former Jet. Yeah. And last one here I'll leave you with. The 2025 New York Jets. Dead last in point differential, dead last in turnover differential, dead last in yardage differential. First team in NFL history to be dead last in all 3 of those categories. The Jets were probably one of the worst teams in NFL history.
It's one of their worst team performances in the history of the franchise.
And maybe in the history of the league. Justin Fields will be released.
Is he going to be released?
That's probably what's going to happen.
Oh.
Because they're probably going to go out and get a quarterback. So, the Jets were absolutely abysmal this year. Tyrod Taylor was by far the best quarterback that they had. Brady Cook tried his best, but he's not good to begin with. So it's an unfortunate situation, but the worst part is they weren't even competitive in the last month and a half. They did not look like an NFL
team. Lost
team.
the locker room.
Oh, by far.
Aaron Glenn lost the locker room. How does he continue? How do they keep him? I don't get it.
They're going to need a serious off-season reflection. He's got to dig deep, Aaron Glenn. He's got to dig deep to pull something out.
Team should be sold. Woody Johnson should get out of this. This is not his forte. Should stick to Johnson & Johnson.
You think about it. He fired his best head coach in 10 years. Robert Saleh.
Yeah.
Just because he got embarrassed on his home soil.
Because Aaron Rodgers told him to fire him.
Maybe. Yeah. All right, let's go to the final one here. What a game this one was.
Loop missed kick at the buzzer to hand the Steelers 26-24 win and AFC North crown. Despite their up and down season, the Ravens could win the division with a field goal by Loop. Unfortunately, he missed, and their season turned to poop. So unfortunate. And Harbaugh, he's pooped too. He got fired today, and we talked a lot about that. Poor strategy again by the Ravens. We talked about this, giving up on the running game in the second half when Henry had 120 yards rushing in the first half. As a result, Rodgers was on the field too much in the second half and made some big plays to keep the Steelers in the game. Rodgers, 31 of 47, 294 yards and a touchdown. Great game. Without DK Metcalf. The belief in the locker room after the win like this is exponentially greater. That's what Rodgers had to say. Loop, who had made 30 of 33 field goals before this miss, took full blame. He hadn't missed inside 50 yards, too, and this was a 44-yarder. So Jackson had a good game, 11 of 18 for 238 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a interception, throwing 2 TDs to Flowers, who had 4 receptions for 138 yards and the 2 TDs. So it's a very exciting game. I couldn't believe that they lost it, the way the Ravens lost the way they did. You saw the guys on the sidelines, especially Derrick Henry. His eyes were as big as half dollars. And Jackson, too, they were shocked that they lost this game. And Harbaugh as well, and Harbaugh paid with his job.
Yeah, I think it's crazy. And again, I've said it so many times on the show, but it can't be understated. What are you doing? You have Derrick Henry. He ran it 15 times for 110 yards in the first half. Derrick Henry, if you average it out, should have had 30 carries for 220 yards.
Yeah, similar to the week before where he had 216 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 36 carries.
Right. Instead, he completed the second half with 5 carries.
Yeah, watching from the sidelines for a good chunk of it.
It's ridiculous. I don't understand what Todd Monken and John Harbaugh
Todd
were doing.
Monken's gone. He's not going to be there.
Well, I don't know if he's. I mean, we'll see what a new head coach thinks about Todd Monken.
New head coach is going to bring in his own people. They're not going to have him there.
Potentially, but I do think that it's interesting how Todd Monken is getting looks to be a head coach when, I mean, I've said it a bunch. I haven't seen it because I watch a lot of sports shows. First Take, Get Up, First Things First, The Herd. I watch a bunch of them.
I'd say the one thing...
Not many are talking about the Derrick Henry thing as much as I am.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'd say one positive for Monken, he did help Lamar Jackson become a better passer.
I agree with that. Yeah, I 100% agree with that. It's just that, again, AFC Championship game, going up against a bad Chiefs running defense, you focus on passing. The running backs run it 6 times. They had a bottom 10 running defense. What are you doing? Some of the big games, Derrick Henry runs 8 times in the first half, and he averages like 8.5 yards an attempt. The rest of the game, he doesn't run it as much. The last 12 minutes against the Patriots, he doesn't run it a single time. Instances like that, what are you doing? And whether that's John Harbaugh making the call, because Todd Monken said against the Packers that he forced Derrick Henry back out there. When he wanted to come out, he forced him back on the field. He ran it 36 times, over 230 yards, had 4 touchdowns. Maybe he should have done that more. Maybe it was John Harbaugh keeping Henry out. I'm not sure, but the fact that Todd Monken had to fight for that.
Is his contract up with the Ravens?
I think he got an extension.
Okay.
So I think he might be there one more year.
So we'll see who the next coach is going to be.
Well, whoever it is.
If I were Mike McCarthy, I would love to be the head coach of the Ravens. Why not? Hey, why not take him? Look what he did for the Dallas Cowboys. He had 3 seasons with 12 wins.
Yep.
12 wins in each season. Didn't do so hot in the playoffs, but neither did Harbaugh.
Yeah, that's true.
Right?
That's true.
I mean, he got to the AFC Championship game once with Jackson. But
here's what's interesting. Diana Rossini just reported that obviously teams that need head coaching, like they have vacancies, they're calling out to John Harbaugh. It continues. Quote, notably, I'm told calls are coming in from a few teams that currently have a head coach in place.
Really?
That's interesting.
Maybe Aaron Glenn. Maybe the Jets.
Yeah,
I doubt it.
There was discussion, but it's a question of would the Ravens pull the trigger? There was John Harbaugh, playoff chokes, not great, just lost. Would the Ravens actually fire a guy they've had for 18 years and have won a Super Bowl with? Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's a smart move, actually. Somebody's there 18 years. They haven't had that much success recently. Can't seem to get over the hump in the playoffs. Little friction with the quarterback that you've got over $200 million invested in. Move on. See what you can do. They got quite a bit of talent. They need more talent on defense, that's for sure. Their defense was not what people thought it was when the season started and everyone was saying they're going to be in the Super Bowl. It started out terrible. They were giving up huge amount of yards, right? So, and they didn't play that well near the end of the season either, the defense. So they were a spotty team overall. And there's no one expected. So I think it's a good move. 18 years. Hey, anybody, a head coach? How many head coaches last 18 years in the NFL these days? None.
I'm trying to think about what some of the teams would be that already have a head coach in place, and I think I have two. One of which the timing of that report doesn't line up, but it would make sense.
Ooh.
Well, the one that doesn't line up right now is Sean McDermott, the Buffalo Bills. Dropping McDermott, bring in Harbaugh.
No, I don't think they would call him now. Not
right, no, exactly.
They haven't called.
That's why it's not right now.
If they lose a playoff game,
right,
maybe.
But so here's what I'm thinking for teams that already have one. Todd Bowles' future is up in the air. They may call him. That was one. And I think if we're being honest here, I know it's weird because he just fired both his coordinators, Dan Quinn of the Commanders. Because he just, like, for instance, if John Mara pissed about Brian Daboll playing Jackson Dart like a linebacker, what is ownership of the Commanders thinking about putting Jaden Daniels out there? He gets hurt. Put him back out there. Dislocates his elbow. Put him back out there. Gets hurt again. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, my bad. Sorry. Okay, now we'll keep him out the rest of the year.
Dan Quinn's history is he rises to the top. You know, it does great, and then he falls off a cliff.
Yeah,
and that's what happened this year. Then he couldn't resurrect it when he was with the Falcons, and they fired him. So, yeah, he may have fired both coordinators as a defensive tactic to ensure he wasn't going to get fired.
Right.
And I can see why they wouldn't fire him after he had so much success his first year. But he better rebound next year, or I think he will be canned.
And I also think the obvious one. I know I didn't just say it, but I don't think this team expected John Harbaugh to be available, but I think at this point you kind of have to say Aaron Glenn. The Jets would drop Aaron Glenn for John Harbaugh. You have, do I think that'll happen? No.
Yeah.
But the fact that, some teams are thinking about dropping their own head coach when they haven't already after Black Friday and supposedly Black Tuesday because John Harbaugh got fired.
Yeah, well, he'll have his pick, I think.
Well, yeah, no, he's the number one candidate by far.
Yeah.
Well,
I think the Giants were smart. They'd go make him an offer he couldn't refuse this week. Get him off the market.
They're interviewing Kevin Stefanski tomorrow.
The Giants are.
Yeah. I think that.
Well, I think Harbaugh is a better candidate than Stefanski.
You're going to get John Harbaugh in that building.
For them, the low risk. So that's what Shane is going to do. He's going to go the low risk because his big concern is hanging on to his job.
Right. And I do think that's smart. So if and when John Harbaugh interviews with the Giants, you're saying you're not leaving. You're not leaving
without a contract.
No. Yeah, you're not walking out of this building without saying that you're the head coach of the New York Giants. So we'll have to wait and see. I know I have a friend who is very high on John Gruden and was okay with having Cliff Kingsbury or Kevin Stefanski. He's salivating at John Harbaugh.
I would say Matt Ryan, if he's going to step up and be at this job, it's an easy decision right now, Matt. Go get John Harbaugh.
Well, he's not a head coach. He would be like an executive.
I know, but he's the one that's coordinating the hiring of both the GM and the head coach. So actually, they probably can't do that, right? Because you can't have him go hire a coach without the GM in place. Probably. So they kind of screwed things up for themselves a little bit there. They hung on to Fontenot. They just could have said, look, guy, go hire John Harbaugh right now. Okay? Otherwise, you're fired.
Yeah.
Okay? They could have done that, and then they'd be in the sweepstakes. Now, they can't really do that.
Unless you expedite the general manager.
Yeah,
search.
but if I were Harbaugh, I'd take my time.
Yes.
Right? Why jump into anything?
Yes.
But I think the Giants, They're going to try. My prediction, they'll try hard. They'll try to land him this week.
I would tend to. Oh,
That's a hot
this
take.
week.
This week.
This week.
This week.
Is that even acceptable in the NFL?
Yeah, why
terms?
not?
I would need to check the NFL bylines and when I know because interviews can start. Are you?
If you go for an interview and they make you an offer you can't refuse, you say yes. Doesn't mean you have to go talk to somebody else.
If that's the case, then I would tend to agree with you. A week maybe too soon.
And then if I were Mike McCarthy, I'd be drooling over the Ravens job, or the Falcons, or the Falcons job. I think those are
I don't know.
Those are two very good jobs. I think the Falcons have a lot of talent. They have a lot of talent. They have one of the best running backs in the league, right? Bijan Robinson is a great player. He's not only a great running back, he can catch the ball. You know, he had a lot of his total yards that he might have been the number one total yards from scrimmage this season. Did he have that? Did he get
Bijan?
that record? I don't know if you can pull that up quickly.
Let's see. Of course. Bijan Robinson, scrimmage yards. Yeah, led the league.
Yeah, he led the league.
2298.
Not bad.
Nearly 2,300 yards.
You got Kirk Cousins locked up for a couple more years, make him a game manager.
Actually,
you know,
they redid his deal.
Strengthen the defense even more. You should be a playoff team. You should be a playoff team.
Well, in that division, that's why Raheem Morris got fired.
Yeah, you got the weakest division in football.
Yeah,
that would be the job. That would be the job. I think I would like to get that one.
Is that a low risk job for McCarthy?
I would think so. Right? I mean, either that or the Ravens. I think the Ravens
are not low risk.
The Ravens, I think the bar is set very high there. Because they're expecting somebody to come in there and take them to the Super Bowl. So
yeah,
I don't know. That would be a lot of pressure there.
I agree.
But there's a lot of pressure on every job.
Very true.
Yeah,
very true. All right, that wraps it up for.
Really, you sure you want to stop? We've only been going 2.5 hours now.
2 hours 10 minutes. Yeah. So thank you for stopping by here at the Harvey Hour. We appreciate the constant support as always. We'll be back Friday. We got to pick all
playoffs.
This Super Wild Card Weekend. Regular season's over. It's now all in line. You win, you go, or win or go home now. There is no more week whatever. Week 19.
It's a brand new season. One and out. One and done.
Yeah. Every single game is a one and done now. So it's time to strap in Super Wild Card Weekend. We'll be making our predictions, and we'll be breaking out each of these wild card games. So it makes you come join us in on Friday's show where we do all of that. So, but for this episode of the Harvey Hour, my name's Nathan Harvey. That's my dad, Stephen Harvey. We have been your co-hosts of the Harvey Hour. You can catch us Friday evening right here on YouTube.
Hi, Grandpa.
Using Wi-Fi without NordVPN could mean sharing your private stuff with more people than you think. Stay safe on public Wi-Fi. Get NordVPN's special offer and encrypt your internet connection. NordVPN. Online security starts with a click.